Joku. Oh, thank you so much, Joker. I appreciate you. Joku's always in here to troll my ass. Joku, I hope you're doing well. Mr. Forkman, big fork salute to you. Boundless Stephams. Thank you so much, Boom. I appreciate that. Mecca, how's it going? Ludens, Boundless, Sega, Smithsidian. I hope you're doing well. Valuation, hi. Everybody, I hope you guys are doing well. Cry's in here. Hi, Cry. How are you doing? Ay. Hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hope everybody is doing well. Obviously, we are... Can one thing go right for this game? Can anything good happen? Can we get a good piece of news, you know? Oh boy, here we go in D mod. I hope everyone is doing well. So the PlayMA, which I saw somebody had asked what a PlayMA is. AMA asked me anything, so they're going to be playing, and also you can ask them anything. Okay, a little clever. They did one during the alpha, and I believe there were also some creators or who were involved with that, possibly, or maybe the PlayMA was just devs. I don't remember exactly, but from what I've been told in the creator Discord, the PlayMA will start at 4, and they'll be taking questions from the chat. Obviously, after yesterday, I'm kind of curious as to how they'll approach that, but that is the plan. That's about 40 minutes from now. I want to go through the response because I made a video about the stuff from yesterday with Anti-Reels Art. So let's kind of follow up and see what they said. Craft, how's it going? Epitome, I hope you're doing well. Went right for Marathon, indeed. Excited to hear my opinion on this. I appreciate you. Wonder which build they'll play. That is a good question. I do not know, and I don't think they've said. I think it's worrying that they haven't said anything about the stream today, or think they'll do a reminder in 8 minutes. I think they're going to do the stream. It would be crazy if they just, like, cold shoulder us. You know what I mean? If they just didn't do it. And when the artwork gate stuff came out, my first thought was, can this game and dev team not get a break for a change? Yeah. Absolutely. Exactly. That is the larger question. Oh, hold on one second. Sorry, just checking on something. Made a post on Reddit about how Joseph 11 years ago made art with graphic realism that shows that Marathon's artistic style is not plagiarized from any artist, but they have many inspirations. Very true. Obviously, I don't think anyone who's fully aware of the situation, how things have gone, thinks that the entirety of the work that's been done with Marathon is completely stolen. Anti-Real should be allowed to pick one of Pete's cars. There we go. Rage coming up with the real solutions. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Let me see what they said here. Okay, so we got a tweet from the Marathon dev team account. I'm sure a lot of people have said this, but like for me personally, I feel like this is kind of like a weird place to put it. Although I'm sure, obviously, like it got a 1.5 million views. I kind of feel like the main account is a fair place to put this, since it's such a big deal and like such an egregious situation. But they put it on the Marathon dev team. They said, we immediately investigated concern regarding unauthorized use of artist decals in Marathon and confirmed that a former Bungie artist included in a texture sheet that was ultimately used in game. This issue is unknown by our existing art team. We're still reviewing how this oversight occurred. We take matters like this very seriously. We've reached out to Anti-Real, creator of the posters that a lot of the assets were pulled from in the textures, to discuss this issue and are committed to doing right by the artist. As a matter of policy, we will not use the work of artists without their permission. To prevent similar issues in the future, we are conducting a thorough review of our in-game assets, specifically those done by the former Bungie artist, and implementing stricter checks to document all artist contributions. We value the creativity and dedication of all artists who contribute to our games, and we're committed to doing right by them. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Freya, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. Should be on the main... Exactly. I think... how rational of Reddit? What happened? What was the rational Reddit thing? Wrote it also on the Marathon Discord. Okay, so that's... I think that's good. Is the PlayMA over? No, PlayMA starts in about 30 minutes. Curiosity, I hope you're doing well. All right, so like I said, the primary thing is that I think the main Twitter, honestly, whatever platforms that you have, it should be posted on, just because of the nature of what's occurring here. Martin, Big Fork, salute to you. Definitely need to acknowledge that their policies need to change to have those stricter checks. Versus image searching is not hard. Yeah, exactly. And let me preface all of this with once again reiterating that I'm not a game developer. I don't work in the tech industry or have any experience in the tech industry or really even like creative projects or anything like that. My background is entirely outside the realm of development, application wise or artistically. So I by no means claim to have any understanding of the process that goes into making a game like Marathon or even making art like how Anti-Real makes it. I'm a layman who enjoys art, from this outside perspective. The biggest, well, maybe I shouldn't say the biggest thing. One of the things that really sticks out to me, right, is let me just pull it up so we can all see it. Like this is kind of crazy to me. I'm sure I articulated this in the video yesterday that I'd made pretty quickly. But the fact that, so they had this texture in the game, right? It said Aleph, Dark Space Haulage Logistics. And obviously those of us who are familiar with Marathon came across them like, oh, the Aleph 1 team. I guess Aleph is maybe the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet or something. So, could be used in other contexts. But obviously, us in Marathon, we were thinking, oh, this is a reference to Aleph 1, which is the group of volunteer developers who ported Marathon into modern iterations. They got it onto Steam. They did a bunch of work to make it so people in the modern era can play Marathon very conveniently. Hope you're doing well, Jake. Been a while since I was able to catch a stream. Do you think they'll talk about this art in the PlayMA? I really hope so. I'll touch on that in a minute. I think you're saying this. Everyone been acting like they know about game dev or anything. It makes me sad. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I could be out of the loop on a lot of this stuff. So I think it's fair to say, like, I could make a claim here. It's like, well, that's just not how it works. And that would be outside my wheelhouse. Thought it could have happened under the guise that because it was supposed to be under NDA and the artist went, oh, no one is going to see this, it'll be fine, but still unacceptable nonetheless. Yeah. So, okay. So getting back to this really quick. So this texture is pulled from Anti-Real's poster and then it's put into the game. From my perspective, right? If you're making this game and it's built on this massive narrative, it's a franchise that you own the rights to, right? So obviously you have a level of respect for this, and through the writing that we've seen, we see that as well. Thank you so much, Newbie. I appreciate you. We see that as well. Discord server ARG? I don't know. Are you talking about in the Marathon Discord? I don't believe. I imagine they wouldn't do an ARG right now. So my thinking is, right, an artist implements all these textures into the game, and then I would imagine that the narrative team, the writers of this game, would coordinate with the team who's developing the art. Because I could foresee a situation where an artist is making a room and they want to put some graffiti on the wall that they think fits aesthetically, right? But my thinking would be, if I was a writer on Marathon, I'd go, I want all of the words that are inside the map. Could you give those to me? Could we put that in a Word document? Could you, or I'll walk around the map and look for them. Ladra, thank you so much. I would probably want to see what writing is going on. And it feels to me like, because the narrative is such a strong point in this upcoming game, so Sidian, I appreciate you, thank you, that this would be something that they would do. Like I said, maybe that's not how game development works. My thinking is, if you're going to write Aleph, which is a wink and a nod to Aleph 1, or from my perspective, what I had thought, right? And you're going to like give a little kind of description of this company, and mega corporations are a key component to the narrative you're telling, that some point a writer would look at this and go, okay, so there is like a larger element to this. Maybe we're going to do some background writing just for our personal reference, right? But seemingly that just entirely didn't happen, and that it came just from an art asset that was cut and paste. I think this wouldn't be as bad a problem if it was just a couple decals and then compensated the artist, but whoever lifted Anti-Real's designs, they took almost her entire 2017 portfolio, so now her stuff is all over the game. This is what makes it a colossal fuck up. Good point. Yeah, Marathon is going to be going live here in about 30 minutes, Mr. Kron. I hope you're doing well. Worth noting that all the plagiarized elements exist on just one texture that's used multiple times across maps. Good point. Okay, fair. Don't know how you currently feel about Marathon in this state. Literally stopped following the game after what happened, not even because of this situation, but from everything alongside it. The hate and everything around it is so massive that there's no way to enjoy the game, even if you don't care about it yourself. There's a lot around the game that makes it difficult to engage with, right? Stefano, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Even takes quotes from the original game as placeholder safe option. There you go. Good point. Totally agree that this is wrong, but there are people saying that the whole art style of the game is plagiarized, which is objectively false. Okay. Yeah, so let's talk about that, and someone referenced that earlier. Obviously here, you know, they're showing these kind of two images of things that are clearly directly pulled from anti-reals art, and then obviously the other thing, actually I don't even know if it's on here, if it's on was it the Game Post? The Game Post article had the other thing that was GameSpot, the Game Post. Here we go. This was the other thing. Now in my video I had said something, you know, some other kind of maybe exaggerated statement that I thought that this was the worst, and I talked to Michael's a graphic designer, VSL VSK in the chat, obviously works with me and helps edit stuff. Was Martin going on about, you never know with that guy, dude. And I had said, like, man, the videos, like, this really stands out to me, like, this, like, crazy, like, it seems like so similar. And this aspect over here on the right, which was pulled straight from the ARG. Oh my god, what is, maybe the best way to do this is to do that. There we go. Okay, so this component over here on the right side was pulled straight from the ARG, right? And they felt so similar to me that the idea of this and building like this marketing around this imagery, and even kind of when you load into the map, it's a very similar design style. Obviously these are not like one for one, and the concept of, like, I could be getting the language here wrong, but like dithering and stuff like this is present in a bunch of other stuff. And obviously a lot of anti-reals work is inspired by Y2K stuff and Wipeout stuff, you know, stuff that Michael and I had talked about in our marathon art video. Yeah, not the originator of this style exactly. Yeah, for sure. So I'm not, I agree. I don't think that the entirety of the art style was created by anti-real or directly stolen. Hody, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But the timing and alongside the other stuff that was cut and paste makes it so gross. It just feels gross. Like it does not feel good. It makes the whole situation feel so bad that when you put these things next to each other, it's like, man, like I don't know what would anti-real articulate in court, because what is fair compensation? You know what I mean? If the assets were directly lifted, obviously this isn't an end product, but they are making money on this stuff, and you know, they're advertising a game. So I don't know. It's just, and obviously, you know, Joseph Cross follows anti-real, which of course he follows artists that he likes and content that he, you know, connects with. But man, to see that stuff is just so unfortunate. Really enjoy your content and delivery. Appreciate you covering this as well. Thank you so much, Hody. I appreciate that. Mint Blintz is even joining in on this clickbaiting, fake, exaggerated outrage, saying the whole art style is stolen. Yeah, I once again, like, it is funny to see that now on the art video, there's so many new comments of people. Oh, look, it was all stolen. Which, you know, I'm sure anti-real would even agree that, like, yeah, not the whole thing, but like so much of it seems derivative from stuff that they were actively working on at the point of this development starting. And obviously Bungie has like this history of doing similar things. Not wrong, graphic design is sometimes very scary and they can look so freaking similar. That's a good point. One thing that concerns me that it wasn't an inspiration, more like copy paste situation. Like, how could this go through multiple screenings? So I get how there could be a situation where this person's art is put into some sort of like mood board or inspiration thing, where it's like you're trying to design your own thing, and so for reference, you and your team of artists might have like a bunch of reference material, right, that you could utilize to build your own feel, right, to build whatever you're building. And I could see a bad actor or an artist on that team, or somebody who has access to the source material for whatever that inspiration is, going in and cutting and pasting something and put it in. But then again, yeah, it's like if you follow them, it does seem kind of hard. Or like, why would you not ask the question like, oh, where'd you get the Aleph idea? Where'd you come up with that? Or not reverse image searching like a few people have suggested. Thank you so much, Betty. I appreciate that. I feel so sorry for her, not gonna lie, especially since she doesn't have a job. Yeah, I guess that is the one kind of silver lining of this. It does seem like she's getting a lot of support online, which I had made a post with some links that she sent me to her company, and then also to her coffee on my YouTube, if you guys want to check that out. The art lead follows Anti-Real, which could be like inspirations, but kind of, yeah. They do deserve the love, for sure. Remember playing the alpha with you? Love your stuff. Think this art scandal is not a good look, but honestly feel if you simply pay the artist and offer a job would go a long way to smooth things over. Yeah, they definitely have to compensate her in some way. But this is what I'm saying. I don't know what that looks like. How do you put a value on this if like she could articulate or make the argument that a lot of the design language is based on stuff. Knox, thank you so much. I appreciate you. That she did. Even if it is iterations or iterative on older concepts. I guess the worst part of all this situation is the fact everything is happening in so little time. Not even after the game got revealed is just kind of freaking sad. Yeah, the game's not even out yet and all this happened. Many works for also look very similar to works of Michael Wrigley, who also worked on the reveal trailer, and some of them predate works of Anti-Real. Good point. Hope you're doing well. Thank you, Betty. I appreciate that. Surviving. She's sure getting a job after this one. We can hope. Or her company starts doing well. YouTube, but haven't checked out the stream yet. Thank you so much for stopping by. Marathon lover, but this is the 4th time Bungie has been caught doing this stuff. I know. And it's like, how many times have they said the process is going to get better? And also another thing that I think is relevant to point out is that after this happened, I believe it was the guy, I'm not exactly 100% sure, but somebody who was also in this exact situation with Bungie, I believe, has come out and said that they haven't been compensated yet, and it may have happened last year. I don't have the tweet or source or whatever for that right now, but I had seen something like that. So Bungie does 4 times already. Yeah. So they used fan art in a trailer, I believe, in Destiny. And then also they partnered with Nerf to make a Nerf gun, and the designer of the Nerf gun used like a 1-for-1 pull from fan art, I believe, as well. So very similar things where art was just cut and paste from an online source to an official Bungie product. Just to kind of touch on this as the last thing is, like, I'm not gonna, obviously the PlayMA is a huge opportunity for them to approach this correctly. What are you going on about, Marton? Best of luck. Only confirmed time it's been an in-house artist, though. That I believe that's true, Seb. I believe that is correct. But okay, this is kind of my big thing. Like I said, so they have an opportunity here with the PlayMA to do a lot of stuff that I think would go a long way for the community. My perspective is, right, that when you have an organization and there's leadership within the organization and a colossal error occurs, something goes horribly wrong, like somebody has to step up and address this situation, right? My thinking is, if I was in Bungie, or if I was in charge of Bungie, right, I would want a leader who is high up in the company to identify that this is occurring. I mean, there's not a lot to like look into here. It's just somebody did this thing. This is messed up, and she had posted it here first, and then it was inside your game. They were never accredited. You've never paid them, right? It's pretty obvious to know just from an outside perspective. So what I would hope to see as an employee in Bungie, or as an outsider from Bungie, just as at an organizational level, I would want to see a leader step up and just immediately say, hey, this is not in line with our ethics. Vid, thank you so much. I appreciate you. This is not in line with our ethics. We obviously seek to like accredit and compensate people who provide art to our projects. This was a massive oversight. We're going to do an internal investigation, and we're going to try to make this as right as we can. I feel like personally that's the job of leadership, to take these things that are difficult, forward-facing tasks to accomplish and do that. It's on screen. Has a response been made? Okay, yeah. This is the response they gave. Okay, so Death, thank you so much. What I personally would like to see would be for Ziegler or Joseph Cross or Pete Parsons, somebody who is a leader in this company, to show a level of leadership. And not that there's still an opportunity for them to do this here. It's just that, zoom in on the page a little bit. Yeah, I gotcha. It's just that I would prefer if that was already done. I would prefer that the moment they saw it, don't run it through legal. Don't talk to your PR people. Recognize that you're the leader. You're steering this ship. You're the director of the game. You're the art director. You're the CEO of the company. Say something and take the responsibility of whatever the fallback is for that, because that's on you as a leader inside of this organization. If there's going to be some pushback to that, I think that's the thing that I would personally like to see. Now, I'm waiting to kind of reserve my totality of how I feel about this. I'm still, processing, trying to understand everything. This response does not satisfy me in the sense that it doesn't feel like anybody's taking ownership over this massive conflict, and the resolution that they're offering rings very hollow with the history of what's occurred at Bungie. Ixiom, thank you so much. Now, like I said, this is a great opportunity for them to do that, but if they avoid this issue on the PlayMA, if they don't open up with the team directly talking about this, or at least at some point cover it in a lot of depth, that's going to be very difficult, I think, for me to agree with. I think that that's a very pivotal thing to have occur in this process of addressing this issue and correcting it in the long run. Ziegler has to be the one to step up here. Seems like a good guy to do so, but who knows? Yeah. How's it going, Hood? Ziegler, I mean, anybody. I like, if you are a leader, honestly, and like I said, I'm not coming from the tech world. In my background, it would be like, if a leader fails to kind of do the right thing in one of these situations, then it's whoever below them is willing to identify the issue and do it, right? So I would really like to see that. And like I said earlier, this is not satisfying to me. On a small account, not even on the main account, to address this by saying it was a guy who doesn't even work here anymore. Even if that is true, they have to understand how that sounds to people. Looks like canceled. I don't think it's going to be canceled. But then again, it's like, I really need to understand what occurs here. Shadow. Oh my gosh. The 5 subs. Thank you so much, Shadow. I really appreciate that. That is so kind of you. Thank you. But, we need to see accountability. Jason Jones comes out just to say hi. All right, then everything's fine then. Joseph Cross is the art director. Yes. Wow. That is so kind of you, Shadow. I really do appreciate that. Fellas, can someone help me find when and where I can watch the interview with Joe Cross? Oh, if you just type in Joseph Cross podcast on YouTube, it should pop up. I forget what channel it's on. Agreed. Someone needs to take ownership. Yeah. I think they'll announce future test days, another alpha beta in the game PlayMA. Yes. My thinking, okay, so just to be clear as to what I was thinking prior to all this stuff, and that sucks. I know, Odin, dude. It is a bummer. Hate the passive voice. These apologies are always written in. I know. Have somebody take accountability. That's important. I think that's important. And that's what leadership is for. Leadership is here to do these emotionally difficult tasks of facing an audience or an obstacle and being the face of this conflict. And like I said, it could happen at the PlayMA, and that's really what I'm looking for at this point. Prior to all of this going on, just to get back to that question, my thinking was that the PlayMA today was going to cover the response to the feedback. So, hey, these are the things you told us. These are the things we're changing in terms of design and mechanics. And then also, when the next playtest is, which I was thinking was going to be at some point in July, and then the beta, which I was thinking was going to be in August. That is what I was thinking it was going to be prior to all this. Now, obviously, I think it'll be a little bit different. And with Rilo's take on this whole thing, masses love to freak out about small things. I don't... Rilo, I believe, is like an artist, right? He is a graphic designer. So possibly has like a more nuanced take in terms of the actual corporate side of art and how things are developed in a product setting. So maybe that colors his opinion a little differently. For me, it seems like a big deal. I'm thinking, okay, you're Bungie, you're owned by Sony, okay? Why at any point, let's say it was a temporary asset, right? Why at any point would you be pulling a temporary asset from an online source that isn't something that you paid for? Like if I said to Boundless and Undefined is like, oh, let's make a game, and we're like, making a game in our spare time. Time of the official live stream, 15 minutes. We're making a game in our spare time. I could foresee a situation where in one of our test builds of the game, we might put something off the internet on there just as like a placeholder image. But they have a whole art team. They have an entire staff. They're a major, I mean, you know, millions and millions of dollars a year in profit. Access to Sony Entertainment in terms of who owns the company. I mean, why would you ever use an asset that was just straight pulled off the internet? You get what I'm saying? Like I would think that it would only be assets that you either purchased, you know, like bought directly for that purpose, or oh, Michael, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Another gifted from Michael, too kind. Hey, what's your thoughts on the requirement for a month of following to be able to chat on their Twitch channel? Interesting. I did not see. Is that something new that they just turned on? Speaking as a career designer, this is a big deal. Yeah, I think it's a big deal. And I'm sure, and not to like entirely disagree with Rilo, I haven't read exactly what he said, but I'm sure Rilo agrees that obviously anyone's art being used without their permission or compensation is a problem, a major problem, especially by a large company, when this is a person who is not like, you know, making a living even off their art. Seb, as a small artist myself, I would see this the same way as the artists involved. It's scary that in this day and age, artists who have years of portfolio can just get ripped of their creativity by a company and have the pressure of not being able to help, but only have to rely on public voicing to resolve an issue. It's worse if you're under 1,000 followers too, since your voice won't be heard unless it's shared. Yeah, absolutely. I will say that like it is very... I'm sure a little bit of the response to it, right, is built around some of the hate that I kind of see as unjustifiable, in terms of like towards Marathon generally prior to this. With another one, Michael, too kind. I really appreciate that. But yeah, some of that boost, right, is probably from that. But I'm also it is heartwarming to see like a lot of people rally behind. Like this is clearly a major corporation doing something wrong to, thank you KPS, I appreciate that, doing something wrong to a artist, a small individual person who's trying to make a living off their art. They knew their entire art team was following the artist, and guilty as hell. Yeah, like I'm saying though, I do foresee a possibility where it's like these textures get used, and Anti-Real has posted a lot of posters, and one individual doesn't see it. But for nobody in the chain of like I said, where is the narrative team going like, oh, you're inventing a whole other corporation inside of the game and it's in bold text all over this, all over these maps, and we're not even questioning you as to where it came from or what you thought about it? Or did they question and then the person just lied and said, oh yeah, I invented that, and they never, I don't know. Stealing like an artist does not mean stealing from an artist. Exactly. I will say their schedule has not been updated. I did just see, like I mentioned, somebody had said that apparently you cannot comment on their stuff anymore. Shadow, oh, with another gifted sub. Oh my, holy okay. Look at, with 10 gifted subs. Oh my gosh. Shadow, you're too kind. I really appreciate that. That is so nice of you. Do you think they'll actually do the PlayMA? There's nothing on their schedule calendar possibly canceled after this controversy. If they silently canceled it, that would be incredibly disheartening. That would be, I would be very displeased with that decision, especially after they made this post on their alternate account apologizing for it. I mean, I'm assuming that's not what's happening. I would be displeased, to say the least. We got this crazy hype train thing going on. You guys are very kind. I really appreciate that, Shadow and Michael. Thank you guys. This isn't even the first time Bungie has done this. Yeah, and we were talking about that a little bit earlier. I will say this is Anti-Real's website, or the company, I believe, that they co-own with someone else. So if you want to commission them for work, I think they do design and I forget the exact wording. Oh, design and info space architecture. Obviously looks very sick, so support them. They also have a coffee link on their Twitter if you want to check that out. Yeah, I mean, this is, and just getting back to this, like, this is really where that message should have been, or it should have been coming directly from The Pontoon, thank you so much for following. I appreciate you. Should have been coming directly from Joseph Cross or Joe Ziegler. All these crazy subs. I love it. I appreciate you guys. They're getting ready in the PlayMA channel in the official Marathon Discord. Interesting. Okay, so it's not going to be in the it's not going to be on Twitch. They're not streaming it to Twitch. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second here, guys. Is that what I'm reading? Oh, will be on Twitch. Okay. Thank you. Keep trying to get hype, but then stuff like this keeps happening. Yeah, it's unfortunate. And like one of the things I've been talking about, and we've had a lot of people come into the chat over the past few weeks to kind of like have a conversation. Mango, thank you so much. I appreciate you, dude. Thanks for following. But we've had a lot of people come into chat after, you know, playing through the alpha and watching the streams here and having chat, and then they'll come and be like, so what do you think? Like the reception, how's everything? And I've said pretty consistently, like, well, I think like generally there's a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of feedback that they have to take into account with further development. Calroar, I appreciate you. But I think there's, you know, in terms of like, is it entirely doom and gloom? I didn't think so. I felt like, yeah, there's a lot of negativity, and also like going through and making these videos. Lunar, thank you so much. And at Ada with the subscription. Oh, you're too kind. Thank you, Ada. But going through and making these videos over the past like 2 months, there is like a clear, maybe this is something that I understood on a conceptual level, but obviously now kind of as more people have found the channel and there are more people in the community hanging out and stuff. Neo, how's it going? Probably during the PlayMA, I'll maybe turn the turn the alerts off just so we can focus a little bit. I appreciate you guys so much. Schmoopy's here. How's it going? Good afternoon, Schmoopy. But I kind of understand more now, having seen the back end of things. Techno, thank you so much for following. That there's like just a clear, like if you post a video that has a negative slant, and I'm like not like trying to pile on, I'm trying to like barely cover things and stuff like that. And with the subscription, Techno, thank you so much. That is very kind of you. Thank you. And it's Techno Folklore. Are you familiar with the Folklore though? And LS and Upper Left Coast, Dad. Thank you so much. But seeing the kind of feedback and interactions that you get on videos that have even just a slight slant towards negativity, I understand why content creators and people generally online are geared towards doing that. Volman, thank you so much for the subscription. I appreciate you. I understand why they kind of seem to make those videos much more consistently, because there's so much interaction. People want to kind of have that online. Xander and Organic, too kind. Thank you so much for following. The whole thing has put a really bad taste in my mouth to the point where I'm debating buying the game. I understand that. Like I said, I think their response today will be very indicative. Where can we watch the live? The live is going to be on Marathon the Game. We will have it rocking here shortly. Hopefully they start streaming very soon. Joe Cross is in the PlayMA channel, so we might get a direct addressment of the issue. Okay, that's good to hear. Hey, yo, Karaki, how's it going? A lot of stuff happening indeed. Arwen's still in bed. Good to hear. Flammy, hope you're doing well. Thank you so much. Flickin' Joysticks, great name. Phasing out reality here. My opinion, this game has a lot of hate from Destiny players, Destiny 2 players, so I know a lot about it, or know about it. Because they want the resources used on Destiny when Marathon isn't designed to take the Destiny 2 players away from it. That's a very good point, yeah. And Ace Traveler, who's our community Sherpa for all of community raids that we've done, I've talked about that with him quite a bit. And I understand, turn up the... You want the volume back up for this? Thank you so much, Brain. Thanks for following. I've talked to him a lot about people from Destiny, and you know, I think there's a lot of fair arguments to be made as to why those people aren't satisfied with what's occurring in Destiny, and I see how that kind of carries over, fairly or not, to Marathon. Obviously, you have a separate project while you want things in Destiny that are not there, that they've been talking about for an extended period of time. Hate will always be bound to get more attention than anything good. Negativity surrounding Marathon and other games releasing just make this even harder. Yeah, exactly. D feature, excellent name. Thanks for following. Excited. Just pay the artists and let's get on with the rest of the game that wasn't in the alpha. Yeah. I'm curious, like, what is fair compensation? I'd be curious to hear what Anti-Real thinks about that, or if they would be like, what are they looking for? You know what I mean? Not that they're like looking or fishing for anything, but I mean, like, how do you compensate for that? Like, how do you know what's that worth and how effective or how influential it was on the project overall? Being overly negative is how you can make a successful video about a topic. Is a mostly ineffective way to make a channel about a topic. Very true. D, how's it going? Isn't there a Marathon official stream now? There's supposed to be. The Moisty
So you guys been playing a little.
Look at that. They got one of DirecTV's new genre packs. Genre packs. Now they can pack just the
Offline.
TV they want.
Nothing yet. Like Twitch team jump scare. Red Stash Raider. Excellent name. Thank you so much for following. They'll announce the next playtest at the end or even during the stream. I did think so. Like I said earlier, I thought that the next playtest was going to be announced for July and that the beta was going to be announced for August in this. We'll see. Not Faced, how's it going? Collaborate on a point you made saying that Marathon or the art director should have said it. There was an incident that happened with D2 where people harassed devs over things they said. Now only the official channels can respond. Interesting. I understand that. I would say if you're the game director, they're paying you the big bucks, you're a leader in this organization at such a high level, I would say that even if it's policy, I would want to see a leader kind of step up and take responsibility in that way. Quohawk, I appreciate you. Wouldn't want to live stream if I was in, to be honest. Community ain't happy, but I think it's, you know, as long as they're honest and direct and on the same, I think they're, you know, these are all, everybody working on this game is a regular cool person, you know what I mean? Oh, Quohawk with a subscription, thank you so much, I appreciate that. Like, these are regular people, like, they care about the game, they care about gaming. I'm sure they agree that proper credit should be due, and they should say that, you know, articulate that point on the stream, right? And then no issue. V 6469, nice, thank you so much. And Hilla, GG's indeed, thank you. Do you think Sony has been largely positive or negative for Bungie? That's a great question. That's a great question. Seems odd the stream isn't live yet. I would agree with that. Cry, are they live in the Discord? Cry said they're talking in the official Discord. Let me see here. Let me just pull this up real quick just to see if there's anything. Compact, thank you so much. She growth, thank you. Negative. Sony's going to kill Bungie. I mean, in terms of like overall, I don't know. I mean, Flammy was a subscription. Thank you so much, Flammy. In terms of like overall, will Sony be a positive or negative? I feel like when companies get absorbed by larger corporations, normally it doesn't have a overall positive impact, at least on their reception inside of the communities that they've built. But also, you know, like, we wouldn't have gotten Halo the way that we did if they hadn't partnered with Microsoft, and I'm sure it goes both ways. Like, there are benefits. How long from now until the PlayMA starts? It's supposed to start in 1 minute. Yeah. We could pull up their YouTube just to make sure that it's not going on over here. Yeah. I do not know. Oh. Said in an interview she was looking into their legal recourses before talking about it publicly. She said she was advised to wait. Interesting. Gotcha. That you're talking about Anti-Real? Yo, thank you so much. Also, they're not live on Discord. I just see the PlayMA channel for reason. Okay. Jax, how's it going? Thank you so much for following. I did not really realize that. I gotcha. Heather, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping by. Scaredy, how's it going? Do studios normally start on the dot or normally just not show without memo? This might be a rhetorical question that you know the answer to, but I'm saying normally things are generally on time. Anti-real went without compensation while someone was being paid for work during COVID. These are all great points. Feels like she can be made whole with some damage to be undone. Yeah. Girl with Snake. Excellent name. Thank you so much for following. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay.
The truth about DIY is...
All right, we're going to be in it here in a minute. Just Matt. Hesker, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate for the follows. I think I'm going to... Here, wait. Here, what can I do? Can I... Is there a way? Here we go. Oh.
Twitch is live. Twitch is live.
Hi, Twitch. We'll get started in a second.
I'm gonna just mute the alert box just while I watch this so we can hear this. Thank you so much, Baskara. Matt, I appreciate you. Is that a Keyblade?
Discord. Discord.
Okay, they're in the Discord as well, it seems. The alerts need to be muted. I'm muting the alerts, so if you want your alert thing to pop up while I'm doing this, you're gonna have to wait till after this is done, okay?
All right, we're live. Hi, everybody. How's it going? I'm Joe. In case you don't know me, I'm the game director here on Marathon. To my left here, or potentially on the right
his
under screen,
necklace,
depending
yeah.
on if it's mirrored, is Joe Cross, everybody's favorite Joe, our director on Marathon. Sitting across from me, who's not on camera, is
some weird
Andrew
audio.
Ritz, gameplay director, and we're gonna spend some time
Stream
talking
volume.
about some stuff today. Our show is a little bit different today. We planned actually
There,
to
I
show
got
a
you in
lot
just
more
a second.
stuff, but for a lot of reasons we're about to get into, we decided not to show a bunch of this stuff. But we are
that
going to be
volume good?
discussing a lot about what we learned through Alpha, some of the plans that we're going forward with. But before
Can
we
you
get into
open the
that,
chat when it's
Joe
full
Cross has
screen?
some sort of topic that he wants to talk to you all
It's
about.
gonna be behind me this way.
Yep. Thanks, Joe. And hey, everyone.
Marathon the
I'm
game,
Joe Cross,
Twitch.
franchise art director of Marathon.
It's desync for me as well.
Wanted to take a minute to talk about some of the
Check the
events
YouTube.
from yesterday. It came to our attention, and so I wrote this. I wanted to make sure I get this message right. Franchise art director of Marathon.
Here we go.
Yeah, and wanted to take a minute to talk
That seems better for me.
about some of the events from yesterday. It came to our attention, and sorry, I wrote this. I wanted to make sure I get this message right. It came to our attention that an artist who worked on Marathon in the
Now it's
early
doubling up.
stages of pre-production took a number of graphic elements from a graphic designer without permission or acknowledgement and placed them on a decal sheet that was then checked in 2020. The decal sheet included icons and text elements. These elements ended up in our alpha build, and there's absolutely no excuse for this oversight, and we are working on and 100% committed to our review process to ensure instances like this don't happen again on Marathon or at Bungie. A few of the things that we've done over the last 24 hours and what we're doing to shore up the review process are as follows. We've reached out to Anti-Real, the artist in question, and followed up to ensure that we do right by this artist. We're auditing all of the previous work by the artist, the internal artist, including the environment decals already in the build, which is part of why we're delaying some of the content we're going to show today. And we're committed to removing anything that is questionably or inappropriately sourced. We're doing a very broad decal audit, and if we locate any other details or elements, we'll make sure that those are eliminated, recreated in-house for sure.
Didn't even think about
Hundreds of artists
how they
have
probably
worked on
can't
this
even play the
project,
game right now,
for
right?
years, internally and externally, and we share many influences, including modernism, Swiss typography, 2000s style vector art, cyberpunk, and of course the original Marathon trilogy. Our style is a result of all of those inspirations.
Exactly, Seabass,
It's
yeah.
also worth noting that none of our external partners who've worked on branding or any part of the visual design of our game were involved with this situation. And lastly, personally, I have a huge amount of respect and admiration for artists working independently and producing and making a living doing commercial or fine art.
Gift and curse.
We've worked with many of them. It's one of my favorite parts of the job is to make those connections and create content and collaborate. And so to that extent, I want to send my personal apology to Anti-Real, whose work was used in this case. And I know how unfair this feels, and we're doing everything we can to make this right with her. Her work is fantastic, and we clearly share mutual appreciation for a specific genre of graphic design, and it's very exciting, and I'm excited to have folded that into our style in general. So thanks for listening, and thanks for your patience.
So absolutely, and thank you, Joe, for coming in and chatting with us about that. If you have any further questions about that, feel free to ask them as we go along. We're probably going to transition now and just talk a little bit about Alpha. And Alpha was a big milestone for us. There was a lot of stuff that went into it. It was
I appreciate
always intended to be
everything
kind of
you
like
just
a
said.
smaller slice of the game. Wits, right? As we were going into it.
Open
Feel free
apology,
to
good
talk,
stuff.
by the way.
Yeah.
It was always kind of meant to be a smaller slice of the game. It was always meant to be sort of like testing a little bit more of that like core combat and some of the baseline of the progression systems that we have, And it was really great to hear a lot of the feedback, especially from those who played the game,
I think
as
that
well
was
as people
well
who
said.
witnessed
Well
it,
said.
and sort of get a sense of where everyone was attaching to certain things and where they didn't see as much meat as they wanted, or things that they didn't like at all, or things that they did really like, So there's a wide variety of opinions that sort of came about. A couple of things that we really learned, we really wanted to talk about, though. One was the idea of
A little bit more
sort of the
ownership
core
would
of
have been
the
nice, but I don't want to get too in the weeds
survival
about the
game, I know we
wording,
talked about this a lot, Wits, the survival game being this like sort of idea of not just running through the environment and trying to survive other people trying to shoot you or the enemies, but like all the different challenges of trying to get out.
Absolutely, Canis. Yeah.
And we feel like some of the bigger things that we missed on that we know we wanted to see, but we kind of like didn't land super well was like the idea of like resources and the survival economy.
Have a good
If you
one,
want to
Matt.
talk a little bit about that, Andrew?
Yeah, like we basically we were dropping like too much ammo, right? Too much heals, too much of everything, and so
Not enough.
people
Keep
were
the
lasting
ammo.
session
Keep the
for a
ammo.
really long time, and we just didn't really kind of push you out. And so we knew this was going to happen in the build, and so we've been really like focused
Thank
on
you so much, Matt. I appreciate it. Michael worked on
how
that
we
with
can
me.
improve that and
DSL, DSK.
get more hazards in the
appreciate it.
game. There's a lot more hazards in the current build. There's a lot more evil things we have in the game.
See, I
as
hate
also,
that
like,
stuff.
and
I hate
half
that.
Half the guns that are in the build,
They're going
and the
against
other
me, I
half
know.
are not in the build. So
Yeah.
you haven't even seen half of the weapons. I know that there was some folks that thinking that like that was the
You
that was
could
the full
drop some
library, and it's
heals,
not. It's
but
like half
not the
guns in
ammo.
game. And they were dropping
It
too
made
often,
the
too. Like, we
fights
were dropping
good.
too many guns, too many long shots. I know long shots were a thing.
Long
They were
shots
too
were
easy to
OP,
get.
The long shots were so
We're
good.
focused on that.
They buffed the long
core of
shots.
it is
though.
ultimately we
They
wanted
were
more
OP, you buffed
stories
them.
where there was about like using your resources wisely, and we didn't feel like we
Share
put,
love of the
people,
genre.
or like we didn't put players in a situation where they needed to use their
just
resources
humble at the
wisely,
moment.
and there,
That's
as a
fair.
result, there weren't enough stories where it was like, oh, I ran out of this thing and I had to
heal
figure
side
it out.
thing. I agree, exactly,
Or I
Coden.
really needed this thing and I was searching around trying to find it, and so we want to build more of those stories moving forward. And so we've been doing a lot of internal iterations. I know even our most recent build, we've stripped back a lot of those pieces, and we're seeing some kind of crazy stories come out of that. So so that's a big part of the survival economy. You talked a little bit about like survival challenges, like the idea of like, the environment being a little bit more hazardous to you,
Oh my
Or is
God,
there any
please
stuff you want
don't.
to share there, Andrew? Little bits?
Please don't talk about a
we're
circle. What did
working
Myth say?
We're working on a bunch of stuff. Working with
At a storm?
Lars's team.
Please
Also,
don't.
Lars is here.
Yeah, Lars, if you want to talk about it too,
Yeah,
feel free
so
to.
Lars, you should talk about all
Lars is
the fun
here.
things and all the ways.
Friend
that,
of the
we're
channel,
How are
Lars
you trying to kill
Backins.
players, Lars?
More ticks. More variation, right? Not just ticks, but additional creatures. Give me the Chakasins that were harassing the colonists. I want to fight Chakasins. Not just a few decals lifted the entire
toxic
style. I
plants
don't know if
now
it's
that
the
we
entire
have
style. Oh,
in
here it
Martian
is.
perimeter. So like between sort of going between POIs, you will have to keep a lookout for that. It's for the people who got really used to
Lars was very
switching to
kind when we got
knife
to talk
and
to
just
him.
going full bore. You're not going to be able to do that any longer in the game. So we're thinking about all those kinds of things, things in the world that make
They're
sense.
taking my
like,
knife from me.
The world really does not want you there. You know, there's
Minimize the
obviously
influence
the
of stolen
USC.
assets, saying how they
obviously
develop a
don't want you
style
there
across
and trying to
previous
stop
marathons.
you. But maybe that's a good
Earlier
segue to,
marathons.
I don't know, Wits, if you want to
We'll
talk
talk
about
about
some of the
them.
UESC stuff we've
Some
been
of the
looking at
language
lately
they
as well.
use, but I think generally,
Yeah, we definitely know that the
It's,
UESC were. When they took a lot of damage, they were like overly reacting, like in hit reacting, and so we're looking at reducing what's called like first sighted, which is like they look at you and they're like you, and then they get into combat with you, and then they take some shots. We want them to be more stand their ground robots and hit that killer mecha infantry fantasy that they kind of want to bring. So we're adding we're looking at transitions for going right to combat when they see you. We also noticed that
I moved it over to YouTube.
When players were engaging in combat with the AI, they couldn't ever like disengage. They couldn't like kind of be like, okay, like I'm fighting. How do I break line of sight?
It's
and
like
they kind of
stealth options didn't work as strongly as you wanted to, right? In that way.
Yeah. And so we're looking at that. We're looking at
Could be a YouTube
we had there's a few bugs we had where you take out, like you have your knife and you take out like a recruit, and then like the entire POI, the entire like point of interest, like knows exactly where you are and they're running towards you. That's a bug we're working through right now with the team. And so the intent is that that makes noise obviously, and the nearest units like investigate that area versus the entire hornet's nest comes barreling towards your
I don't know if
direction.
they'd be allowed to if they knew,
and so,
right?
we're looking at both increasing their challenge and making them more satisfying to fight, as well as working on their perception and how they kind of find you. Right, we want to kind of have this engage options where you can do some damage maybe, and then like you don't need to finish the fight and stand and fight. Is that you actually might they see you and there's a moment in time where you can actually like break and kind of get a chance to get away. But we still want them to be threatening versus like you can just run around them. Right. They need to really push back.
The sweet spot you're kind of
Seems
looking
like
for
they
is
can't
ultimately that
show the game right now, right?
you have more options for how you like divide
divide
and conquer and tackle them, depending on how you play. But if they do get an advantage on you, each individual unit feels a little bit more threatening to you, right?
Yeah. Like we were there. There's the shield unit, the big shield unit, for example, is. If you get first shot advantage on this unit, especially like a precision headshot or something, sometimes
I never
would
have thought that until
and
yesterday.
then they wouldn't kind of do a bunch of their abilities that they kind of have that actually like charge you, and they like kind of tuck behind a shield, and you can't actually shoot them, and they're perfectly tucked behind that shield, and they push you, and they want to like do this melee attack. We were noticing that they were getting taken out before they can kind of do that, and so we're looking at looking at their vitality in ways where they don't feel like they're bullet sponges, but that we really require you to play this like marksman game, but also that they challenge you to kind of have different ways for you to resolve the fight with them. So the team's really kind of digging into kind of like different ways we can kind of
PlayMA,
get into that and resolve that in a way that feels even more satisfying, but also still make it so that there is those disengage moments.
Let me
I'm going to tackle this fight with this unit, but I'm going to do this thing. Like there's this hit react they have. They kind of like power down for a second. They kind of wake up. It's like this
generally the stealth and AI of the enemies was something they were tweaking at the end.
Maybe that if you duck behind cover or something,
early access beta
they
until
don't know
release.
exactly
We had
where
talked
you are
about
when
that.
they wake up, for example, and so
Potentially as
that
an
also
option.
plays into kind of more of the like solo viability in terms of like you don't have to like 1v9 all the robots.
Yeah,
No, totally
that would
makes
be
sense,
nice duel, right?
I know another
He
topic
kinda
that
has that look
came to survive
sometimes,
games
though,
is the
Arwen.
pacing of like sort of every given session, right? Like I know we talked about it internally. It's like there tends to be like a front-loaded tension inside of our runs, where a lot of tension happens in the beginning. There's a lot of brawling, and then it sort of like begins to quiet out as you're sort of playing through the rest of the session. And we wanted to make sure we shake that up a little bit.
I'm going to agree with you, Seabass.
I know we've
They
talked
need to
a
play
little
at
bit
least a little bit,
about
right?
how event pacing folds into that. Lars, I think you and your team have talked a little bit about it, right? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that was really good. We actually got a lot of good data from the alpha about how event pacing was working, but also just sort of being able to, like, we got lots of good feedback about some of the events and how difficult or not difficult they were, how frequently they appeared or not frequently. And so we're looking at all that data, and we also understand, I think you said a really important thing, which is we also realized that as the session went on, the tension started to drop. Like if you were going after and you had run into a bunch of players, after a certain, you never know quite exactly how many players are left in the session.
Slow zoom, Vietnam
but after,
edit.
After a certain amount of time, you can guarantee that the PvP population at least is dwindling a bit, and so
Joseph Cross
our
addressed
challenge that
stuff in the
we're,
beginning.
we're looking at right now is
now they're talking about changes. Can't show the game. It seems
danger
because
over
the
time,
assets are still in
and
there.
we can handle that in a bunch of different ways. But
Nice,
we've got some pretty neat ideas there. Like is it about complexity or requirements for exfils? Is it about increasing PvE or world resistance? Is it about pacing of the activities?
That's a great point.
I think the answer is all of the above, and so like we're looking at all of those things right now, and I think we have a lot of good knobs and tuning capabilities there. So I'm pretty bullish on our ability to make the longer you stay in the session, the
they gotta
less
put a pop filter on that mic.
Feel, but
they
also
put it
the
right
more
below
you're
his
like,
nose.
maybe I should get out of here now. So that we want to increase those sort of thoughts
pressures
from happening too.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
Joe, you mentioned immersion too.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that definitely touches art. And one of the things we're hoping to show today, or show next week, is some of our fidelity improvements.
Next week.
I know that there were.
Was there another event next week that they were going to announce?
Very work in progress areas that got a lot of scrutiny in the alpha build, such as like exterior lighting, perimeter map, and some of our lobby. So art is full steam ahead.
The same headset.
A bunch of those improvements. We're very excited to show.
That's how big of a Bungie fanboy Ace is.
And then the other side of immersion is kind of the runner stories that we want to tell, and the kind of fictional fantasy. And to that extent, we're working closely with creative direction and the whole team to sort of really dial in some of that fantasy.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the work that you guys are working on, which has been really cool to see. I mean, everything from we had a bunch of stuff we wanted to show today, but by the way, we decided not to show it because we're still scrubbing all of our assets to make sure that we are being respectful of the situation that Joe talked about earlier. But there's a lot of things we're doing to try to increase that immersion. I know we've even added like really like details that have sort of helped to make it a little bit more immersive, like the blood.
There we go.
That runners bleed.
I think I did
even in water and things of that sort as trails and indicators of damage that they've taken. I've also seen us like sort of putting more entropy into the world, where we see a little bit, where the idea of the abandoned colony comes a little bit more to life on places like Mars.
Yeah, some of
next
that
week.
stuff.
I don't know. They're just saying they were going to show some stuff next week.
Sort of heightened by the reaction to the cinematic
trailer. And the awkward fumbling between all the devs. Hard to watch.
It seemed to go over really well. And sort of making sure that we're sort of following that fantasy.
Yeah.
Tuning those knobs to whatever extent we can. To whatever extent we can.
What is the chat saying here?
Material response, occlusion, lighting, fidelity.
Concord
shit. So much in terms of immersion.
Caught stealing.
From a technical
Sandy, this happened 3 times.
Point of view.
Even some of the foliage.
Only 1K watching on YouTube
some of that shimmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of exciting stuff happening under the hood. Team is doing amazing work. Hopefully we can show it soon, next time.
Yeah.
And also the sort of whole
one guy, but a system that kind of failed in a lot of ways as well, seemingly multiple times, which is unfortunate.
That whole sort of comprehensive.
Do not read the chat. Gotcha.
Fictional fantasy of being a badass mercenary.
Not a good time.
Yeah.
Heading down to do dangerous work.
Yeah, a lot of the UI that we went in with was definitely in a temporary state too, and so for us,
honestly surprised it's not bigger. Or a lot of streamers streaming it to like kind of see the shit show idea.
Right.
We've always, paying off the cyborg fantasy has always been our a goal and a sort of carrot on a stick for us. And that's sort of the fun part, and that's the stuff that really ramps up towards the end.
And there's sort of like 2 parts to that, right? There's like the cyborgy part, right? Which is like, oh, I'm this robotic entity. And then there's also the part where it's like, you are this mercenary. So you're kind of doing like the thing which is like...
watching it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
How do I describe it? It's like you're not like
necessarily watching it. Great.
A good guy. You're not necessarily a bad guy. You're kind of going against the status quo in some degree, right? And so feeling that out a little bit more in terms of the experience, right?
Yeah. the runner fantasy has always been a blue collar fantasy.
Yeah.
For the most part, like you're doing a job. This is
this is dirty work. That's a cool way to describe it. I don't think I've ever attached that connection.
Sort of nefarious or questionable sources, but so
blue
communicating
collar.
that visual fantasy.
Blue collar with $1 trillion.
That's awesome. Yeah. There's so we've been putting a lot of work into, especially sort of doing some iterations on the visual updates, and also thinking about how we reinforce that fantasy.
Have anti-real stuff? Forward. I don't think so.
Another area we've been talking a lot about is
in-game textures, I believe.
I
posted
and sort of thinking about the
pictures on
variety
Discord,
of different ways that players play the game. We definitely had people playing. A lot of people playing in solo matchmaking.
Sure.
We had a decent amount of people who played in solo unmatched made. So just basically running around in the world of solo. We had a lot of people, a chunk of people who played in trios, across the different board. And we definitely found that through the feedback and also through a lot of the experiences that were relayed to us inside of the alpha, that the crew match-made experience just wasn't that great, And so we're looking at a lot of ways to potentially solve that on our side. Some of it is thinking about how each individual can contribute. I know we've been talking a little bit, Andrew, about like the 1vx situation, if you want to talk a little bit about that. It's like how viable you feel like you can turn around a battle and stuff like that.
So why didn't they just say
solos?
Why did just say solos,
Move the conversation forward. We felt like we got enough feedback on certain things, and we wanted to actually like take some swings at some problems that we're seeing, and we actually we implemented the shield change. Was actually something that we were getting to for our next milestone. That was in our next our current milestone, I guess, because it's an older build, right?
Yeah.
But it was in our current milestone. We ported it over ASAP, and so really appreciate Runner Team and everybody kind of getting that change in, because there's a bit of a content change, but we felt it was worth it to actually learn more about time to kill, and being able to the power of shields in the combat economy, and reducing the overhead of shields. And so like majority of the effective health was in your baseline health pool versus like in your shields. And we had some good changes that kind of came out of that. And so they
should have had an outline up here. I mean, this is all just a big
build, and we're focusing a lot more
word
on
salad kind of thing. Not in a bad, like they are explaining things, but
so an example is the overrun. We were kind of like the overrun, the base gun in the game that you kind of start off with. We were kind of we were nervous about like upping the damage on it, because I know folks were like, this is kind of like not the best gun. It's like, well, it's the starter rifle that requires a bunch of attachments to kind of get to its like big power delta, and so it requires a lot of investment to kind of get to a good spot. We were kind of nervous.
Good stuff's just hard to follow.
Like, just upping the damage on it.
They should have had like an outline or something for each topic.
Doing a it's called like a skill floor, skill ceiling audit, which is like how skillful do you to be to have like the gun in its base, like what we call like gray or standard state, which is no attachments.
Exactly.
And then what is it like? What is the skill demand at like the floor, at the base? Effectiveness.
TLDR regarding
what
the
are we asking for players? Like how much
might be difficult. They're kind of bouncing around,
like,
but
where are the major flaws in the guns?
At the end of this, we'll kind of try to review
your build crafting, but also like removing as many flaws as you want in terms of like what you have a hard time controlling about the weapon.
They did stick to it, but if they would have not done it, that would have been terrible.
So that, when you feel like you're being taken out, it's like, oh, this person was good. And so when you're lower shields versus higher shields, you want to make sure that your guns are doing damage in the ranges that they're really supposed to. So if you get the drop on somebody, you should be effective, and it shouldn't be like you need certain rarity guns or anything like that.
TLDR.
So we're working on that a lot. We have, it's a bit spicy right now. Like there's some SMGs that are a bit hot, in the current build, but like we feel like they're appropriately hot when they're,
But see, we're talking about weapons right now. Just to be clear, my understanding from what Joe Ziegler started about was about solo modes and viable engagements between single and teams.
The recoil, which is great. We hit some of the snipers. We're actually kind of reevaluating snipers
Smaller
a bit, not like
incidentals.
wholesale, like what are snipers, but more kind of like what are they at the base value where they're not like too effective, because we definitely noticed the long shot had a lot of demand, and like as expected in this kind of genre, snipers have like a lot of effectiveness in terms of like they have to kind of feel like they're lower time to kill. So yeah, we're working on making sure that the time to kill.
I was saying snipers maybe even more a little bit stronger.
The shield differences. So when you're like going up against purple shield and you're a gray shield, you feel you actually can win. And there's multiple kills per clip that's possible with
it's like
the
other CEO to be done. There's a way to win there.
There's a way to win, and that leads to the skill part. Like time to kill is always about skill. It's about effectiveness, right? And then like it's also about like window of opportunity as well. And it's kind of like how you triangulate like overall time to kill recipe. And so we're focusing on skill fidelity. We're focusing on every single aspect of that triangle. And so we're looking at. We have this like how many kills.
They're hitting on a lot.
Kills
Martin speaks after Pete.
Which is
exactly.
kind of like a spicy
Once
thought,
Bungie's done,
we're really iterating fast on that in the weapon side.
Cool.
Do a lot of damage. Does a lot of damage.
I know another part of like sort of the crew experience is also like the idea of like, do I have the tools to communicate with my crew, right? Like, I know we had a bunch of challenges with even voice chat for players inside of the game, and we're definitely looking into that in terms of thinking about how do we make it easier for you to even enable voice chat.
Okay, just
or like
at this point, I'm going to say at some point they're going to have to summarize, and they're going to have to say like solo play.
Ping system,
heroes, how do we customization, and they're going to have to give like
coordinate with your team if you're not on voice chat,
like their thoughts on these things, right?
And do you have any thoughts on that one? I know you and your team have touched ping system, but
ping was in a very baseline state for alpha. Like I would say it was a very like it was a very MVP even for alpha state. And we weren't super
communication.
We weren't
tools,
super happy with what kind of where the deficiencies of where it was at. And so we are spending a lot of this milestone really plussing up ping, and we're also looking at things like called like a communications wheel, which is like how can you effectively communicate to teammates? How can you like basically ping things in a container? How do you ask for ammo?
The pings were disastrous. Like they're just not accurate.
We're investing a lot on making that really feel intuitive.
And Lars had said they were going to put in voice lines.
We're also talking
choose
about,
the voice line that my runner says.
Some contract stuff too, Lars, like as well about like the fabric of contracts between like multiple players. I don't know if you can talk a bit about what your team's cooking there.
Yeah, Lars, tell us about contracts.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of work. It was great seeing people's response to, I think, working along AI, like the sort of different factions. And so obviously we feel really happy with at least that first slice that people were seeing in the alpha. And obviously
tuning them down,
that was a very, it was a small chunk of the content.
Making the stealth more viable, kind of.
Sort of looking forward to when you're talking about crew play, like how do we lean into that? How do we make that more understandable? How do we sort of surprise and delight players around when they are working?
They address the art stuff in the very beginning. Joseph Cross
match-made player, right? For example,
they're kind of talking
how do
about
we highlight those things? How do we make them understood? How do we reward in ways that make more sense? And how do we make you want to do those things, or like feel encouraged to want to do those things and work with, whether it's the people you pre-crew up with or the people you randomly got put in to matchmaking with, or whether you're trying to do it by yourself and taking on those extra challenges. But I think the interesting part is now figuring out what things were working, what weren't. I'll say like from my perspective, and this isn't the team's perspective, this is mine. Like I think some of those things could have been more challenging, and so looking at that as well. Looking at contracts as like there were some that were great where you're like, hey, cool, I can go download this audio file and now I can go throw myself off a cliff. Not a real example, but you know what I'm saying? Like to be able to say like, I did it. I think we want to take a real look at having a mix of things that are more difficult and challenging to do. If we think about priority contracts, and then the other types, maybe they're
nobody is saying that.
More sort of backgroundy, like doing things. And so if that makes sense. So we're taking a hard look at all of them, and I think we have some really good plans there.
So this is Cosmo. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're getting a lot of questions from chat, so I want to jump in. A lot of art questions. I have a question from WigXU. I have a question, a genuine one. Instead of scrubbing so many assets, would it not make more sense to employ the artist, who obviously has nailed the aesthetic you're looking for, and keep the assets as they are?
There's a lot of complications.
And I can jump in with the answer unless you want to take it, Cross.
I know Cross he got kicked out of the Discord for some reason. Like I'm starting his machine, so that we might have a technical issue right now. Do you want to? They're basically asking, wouldn't it be easier just to hire someone to remake the assets as opposed to? Sorry, do you want to repeat the question? Apologies.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you repeat it? Yeah.
Jeez, love Cosmo
just so I can relate to
gut
Cross.
punch
Cross
first.
can't hear you right now.
Get it out of the way, right?
Instead of scrubbing so many assets,
Cross
would it
out.
not make more sense to employ the artist, who obviously has nailed the aesthetic?
The question was, instead of scrubbing all the assets,
I like that idea, but it's like it's not that simple. It's like
yeah, I mean, and for what it's worth,
it's much more complex than that. You know,
the majority of the assets
do that,
in that
I guess,
capacity are original, created internally by our internal artists. We would love to work with Anti-Real if that's an opportunity that presents itself. I mean, that's part of what we sort of reached out to communicate.
It's a great area.
It's a very at this point, it's a very small sort of set of assets. The decals themselves are
Proven
the kind
repetitive
of
occurrence. Yeah.
You know, they're details that are sort of placed on the sides of buildings or crates or something like that. So we absolutely do need to replace them, and we would rule in sort of any sort of way of doing that, including contracting, collaborating, or working with the artist for sure.
Yeah, it is a small amount, but it's just the fact that it happened.
Oh, just to sort of add on to that. Additionally, when we run into situations like this, we also
just
feel like something slipped through our net, you know, and so we have to go back and look at everything just to make sure that nothing else slipped through our net.
Like we were talking about earlier, though, like the language, it's like I would like a little more ownership of the air, maybe.
Either way, we're going to scrub all the assets
things
just because
slip through the net, but
we
that's
want to make sure that we didn't
because of the way that the ship is being, ran. So some of that language just often it does feel
we're getting a lot
disheartening.
of general. We're getting a lot of general questions in the chat, Cross, about like the overall.
Anti-Real going to get paid.
Speak to that and like kind of where you're getting like the
influence. I hope so.
Where you're like making the art. You have to relay this question again, Joe.
So there's a lot of questions just about where your inspiration for a lot of this art style and sort of like where that comes from.
Yeah.
And how you think of the art.
Is he gonna shout out the video?
Yeah.
Shout out my art video. Go to Jake's channel.
A lot of sources, a lot of genres.
What Michael has said.
I talked about it a little bit online. Probably a couple of years ago. Graphic design is obviously a massive part of our game, and typography in general. That's one of the things.
IQ of the Chat Marathon Streams Collective too. I can imagine that, Smiley.
Sort of well. The idea of elevating typography and graphic design.
How gagged
to
they are
sort
by
of the forefront in a game or in an industry that typically doesn't, I think is sort of safe to say. So in terms of that, the influences range from there's even some DNA shared, I think, with Destiny, with sort of Swiss modernism and that whole that whole genre of sans serif typography, all the way up through 2000s, early 90s, which is where I mentioned before. I think there is a lot of overlap there in terms of inspiration with Anti-Real, the Designers Republic, Vector
especially
art,
with the
kind of
doubling up, Michael, in terms
just an
of quality.
example of sort of an exciting part of graphic design history that feels
a lot
connected
of
to sort of naturally connected to games. The studio that sort of drove a lot of that worked very famously on a game called Wipeout, in a very early PlayStation game, which is a big influence for us. And then all the way up to sort of current trends, which may or may not be definable genres. There's sort of a deconstructed kind of minimalism.
I think people generally like Joe
Ziegler. Is another genre that I've heard.
I heard like a lot of hate specifically for him.
So yeah, and this is just specifically thinking about typography and sort of the sort of superficial layer of,
Elster, I hope you're doing
our
well.
Branding and sort of in-world world building. There are a whole slew of influences when it comes to architecture and character design and world building and natural palette. So it's all a big soup.
Awesome.
I mean, Joseph Cross is very talented.
The previous subject was just like sort of on crew play. I know that we've also been
he's an artist,
internally,
for sure. This is a process issue. This is a procedure problem that this occurred. You know what I mean?
We're still thinking about how we want to approach the idea of
it's all over Wipeout original corporate
not
AI.
just 1vx, but like, are there different crew sizes that we want to support? Like, you know, do we want to do something that's more about solo duo, you know, or things of that sort? We haven't really landed on a discussion point yet. Those are all investigations that we're sort of pursuing, so nothing we can commit to there. But we're definitely looking into stuff like that. We're also looking into ways that you can communicate in some way with teams that are not your team. You know, we don't know exactly what feature that could be, but we've been talking a lot about that. So we're looking into a lot of stuff on that front to sort of improve the overall like sort of social complexity of the game, but also make it better for matchmade crews and also crews of different sizes, whether they be ones, solos, duos, or trios, to find a good experience. So let's see, what is another area that we've been touching on?
Exactly correct. That's the job of a leader.
Progression rates
is
in
to
the alpha
address
way too fast.
Things that are emotionally difficult for a group.
Everybody went really far, you know, in the alpha in a very short period of time. Some of it was a lot of stuff was being gotten out. Some of it was just our tuning on factions was way too fast. Some of it, I will say that like, that's one part of it that was true. Another part of it that was true was, what's up?
Money, credits.
I do agree with what you're saying, Michael.
Yeah, credits and material economy we're thinking about as well.
And it is,
you know? Like we want to make sure that credits and
which I'm assuming it is,
have really distinct purposes.
It's such a lame response. Like
how you use them.
Guy doesn't even work here anymore.
Using them right now, we don't think we landed that super well in the alpha. It was a little bit muddy. And you end up spending a lot less money than you gained, and the credits economy was a little bit more grindy than we intended. There's a lot of things like that we want to support. Some of it is rethinking sort of how those things are distributed inside the black market, so different things that you'll buy with each one. Some of it is also, we know that part of our aspiration for the black market is that you are able to upgrade your way into sort of customizing what your black market does for you, gives you reliable ways to build the kit that you want to, especially when you're recovering, or gives you options that actually continuously help you.
I think that'll be more relevant.
And that's a little hard to do. It's a little hard to target which upgrades you really, really care about right now currently. So we're thinking about how to iterate on that as well. And we're doing some work already to improve that experience. And then lastly, there's like a lot of progression systems that we just simply haven't put in the game yet that we are looking to help sort of like make that journey a little bit more awesome, especially as you go further into it. Things like our archive system, which is a little bit more about achievements and collection stuff that we have, as well as there's additional other things inside of there, like
just to be transparent, I think
factions that you haven't met yet. But yeah, there's
legal process.
And we're also trying to take all of our factions and give them a slightly more distinct identity against each other. Right now, they read definitely
so far
differently
is
from
that
like a lore standpoint, but like how that folds into some of the upgrade systems and some of the contracts they ask you to do is not as distinct. So we're refining.
They're getting very into the nitty gritty, and they're not addressing the big
those are
overview stuff. That's none of the big beats from my perspective. I think address
I don't remember.
solos directly address heroes. I mean, I'm not saying there's things need to change, but stand by it and explain your thought process.
Like the overarching deal is like we definitely have gotten like a lot of
the government
points to improve on, and we're actively improving on them right now. And like some
I
of our
expect
investigations
more
for bigger
from
ones,
them
but
than the government.
I think like in general, the survival game being more robust is a huge one. Feeling more immersed in the world, having the world feel more alive.
Yeah,
you hitting on the fantasy of like being a runner, right? Like in what we call infill, which is like going from matchmaking into boots on the ground, doesn't feel like super great right now. So we're actively working on that.
I haven't heard them talk about customization.
All the gaps that
I haven't heard them say the word heroes. I haven't heard
feedback
them.
Or that,
perhaps I missed it talking about like the abilities.
In the game of like how players.
They very briefly touched solos and then immediately went into time to kill and the weapons, which I understand is tied. But like,
I know we've spent a lot of time
not
sort of
exactly
beginning a lot of the work has already begun, but like sort of also just talking about all the sort of work we are going to do about tackling a lot of these issues as well.
Adenada, Maida, Sekuchi, and Arachne.
That's a good segue.
The other
question
ones
from IMTK.
Oh, you're talking about later on,
What's the biggest negative feedback from the alpha that the team is looking to change by release, or at least close to the period after release?
Thank you so much, Bray. At the beginning, if you go to the YouTube stream, you can scroll back and look at
like the run
Joseph Cross address art
probably one of the biggest ones, because we're
about
putting a lot of different points into it. Like we're thinking about how Lars mentioned earlier about how exfilling is different, inside of the game. Like for example, we might change some of the rules around exfilling and sort of the way it works right now.
Non-hero shooter.
We're also thinking about everything from AI combatants to resources to loot.
I think Joseph Cross
that, so it's
is obviously his heart is in the right place, but some critiques about the language and how they're addressing it. But
the other big area,
wait till the end to make a judgment on it,
which we're really trying to land a little bit better, like the immersive fantasy stuff.
Starships powered
wish
by
we
coal.
could show you some examples, and we definitely will soon. But there's a lot of work we're putting into that too, to make sure that it really feels that it mirrors the intensity of like the experience that we intend.
In-game current builds to showcase changes and improvements. It was supposed to be res. It was supposed to be that. They said that it seems like they cannot show the gameplay because the assets are still in there.
Right,
and they're
now,
worried about like some of the legal implications of that.
And we want to really make sure that
what Joe
all
Ziegler seemed to reference earlier.
From a gameplay standpoint, in a really impactful way. Yeah,
a lot of might and I don't know.
I'd say the biggest one on combat is
I appreciate you, Bray. Thanks for stopping by.
We need to make the game we need to have a lot more options for players to kind of like resolve different scenarios differently.
Nice, Ion.
Which is a
Good
hilarious
stuff.
statement, but like it's like you need to be able to again go to the point earlier. Like you have to be able to peel off of AI, understand how to fight different AI, different players, how you get out, get more variety in there, and then being
exactly.
We did have a lot of good feedback around. It requires 2 people to do anything in the game, or 2 or more, and also like how much you're reviving and like the time it takes that for them
digest it more,
or any squad to revive, and how long.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that we're revisiting some of the resing stuff, but
the res stuff. We're changing how that works so that when you actually do get a pick on an enemy crew, they can't res in the time that it takes you to heal to full, which I think was a kind of a big problem. So we wanted to make sure that you by yourself have more agency and can actually affect more change in the world, but also the world really pushes back a lot more on you.
That's a solid balance change.
I think that's probably the biggest trend of feedback on
those
combat.
Timings should be altered to account for that.
Tackling from a ton of different angles,
res
like
rework,
on combatants and on the runner side and on the.
It used to res
side.
to full health, but now it reses to minimum health.
Yep,
I think.
So
I got a question. No, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was saying from the art side, it's focusing on immersion and sort of divided
Marathon
into
the game is
fidelity,
the channel, Bray.
the technical side of our visual world, and then it's the sort of narrative. It's supporting the narrative of the runner fantasy, which there's a lot of work to do, and those are the 2 biggest takeaways for us from the art side.
Nice curiosity.
The
runner fantasy. He's talked about that quite a bit. Blue collar.
Yeah,
runner
we got a question
fantasy.
from Curiosity. It says, going forward, will we see more ways to customize
There we go,
and
Curiosity.
represent ourselves as players within the runner?
Hey, that's what we were saying. Thank you, Curiosity. Thank you for making them address that.
I think we are going to be doing a little bit more. Like I know Andrew's team has been working on skin work for a while. In terms of just thinking about how to give you
that's what I thought it was going to be.
Visual options to express yourself. We're not going to talk super deep about it because we're still in the process of figuring a lot of those pieces out. But is there anything you want to share on that front, Andrew?
Yeah, we were looking at different ways for their the runners to be customized, both gameplay wise and also in terms of their visual sets. We're also looking at making weapon stuff too to express your weapons and stuff different ways and multiple ways.
So weapon skins,
not just one.
That did trigger something that I think we
skins.
forgot to talk about that we want to talk about was build crafting. How we're sort of thinking a little bit more about how we want to make more distinct build crafting elements.
Yeah, we're tackling build crafting improvements in 2 vectors. One, the runner team is really figuring that out right now. They have some really good ideas. We're trying to basically learn from what we had in the alpha and then extend it in terms of implants being a bit more interesting and kind of cores having a lot of the interest that people were kind of chasing. And so we're looking at how we can get plus up implants a bit more so they stand up better alongside the
It's going,
cores.
Tussle.
And then on weapons,
it's going.
we had perks only in like the upper tiers of attachments, like on purple attachments and stuff like that. So you'd have like, a purple magazine that had a perk on it, or a purple barrel that had a perk. We're taking a lot of the perks and putting them into the chip attachment. And
it's all good, Kudos.
They're not
some people are just coming from different perspectives.
The weapon or the weapon family anymore.
They
like
have
the
different
chips
ideas
are generic,
about it.
and so if you find a chip, you can put on any gun.
Just feel strongly, about the art.
So it gives you
about
more
stuff,
like an anchoring element then, like this like verb.
It's all good. Let's
Yeah, and there's more chips at like lower rarities.
Feel passionately about the game and about art.
We're really looking at
Gecko. How's it going? I appreciate you.
More of that.
If you guys aren't subscribed to Gecko Frontier on YouTube,
versus like
check them out.
You
Great
need a
extraction
specific
channel.
thing, and there being more considerations for
Gecko.
what verb you want to add to the.
Seems like no strong customization outside of player skins.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
so I got a
from
question
an art
from
side,
Ethan.
I'm super excited about the whole cosmetic side, the fashion game that we're gonna deliver. Our base characters have such a unique look. And sort of specific to our visual world that it's a question we've gotten a lot about. What kind of range, what kind of aesthetic or visual range do these runners support? And their answer is all of them. So, yeah, we're very excited to start.
Okay, but see, now he's talking about fashion
and sort of ways for players to identify.
Fashion makes you think you can kind of
more specifically with certain runners or styles or fashions.
But then the way they're describing it just seems like weapon skins, character skins. I apologize, Seabass.
So I got a question from Ethan. Has the team reconsidered its stance on proximity chat or exploring other ways to encourage more emergent
Just to be clear, Joe Ziegler has already talked about this.
Players and squads?
He said it was a compliance
I think
issue.
That's one of the areas that we're
see what he says here.
Still brainstorming around. Is like
fashions in
how
game
do you
Destiny
signal
3
to
confirmed.
other people, like the classic friendly. Like what's our version of that? Or is there a way that you can use those things in interesting ways between
exactly, Seabass? They should have had an outline on the screen or something.
But
it should have been more. This would have gone over better if there's gameplay in the background and people could associate what was occurring with what they're talking about and the way they did it. But
all right, I got a question from Agent. Says, would love to hear about the materials for each faction. I feel like there's way too many faction materials and it's insanely overwhelming.
The materials for each faction. Oh, you mean for the upgrades, like to purchase the upgrades and stuff like that?
Right.
Show thief stuff. Yeah, that'd be
I
good.
think right now we're talking about the materials economy a little bit. How it all aligns to different things. There's a couple things that I think we've learned from Alpha. One is that we want more materials that are kind of like a little bit more memorable and evocative, like we said. We think we like things like tick milk inside of there because it just kind of has this like interesting, evocative, but you kind of question what it's about. So the creative theming of some of the materials we're taking a second pass at, but the other part of it is there is a lot of materials and they're all like sort of value graded, like in terms of thinking about like greens, blues, and purples and stuff like that. Trying to make it a little bit easier for you to understand the value of a material, as it sort of is used across different things between like sort of recipes for trading versus upgrades.
They're getting like really in the weeds here.
It's like a sort of a
they did say in
how
the
we use materials kind of thing.
Creator Q&A, you said it's a compliance issue. I believe
it's
personally, they haven't said this directly, but
it being clear
I believe it is Sony's interpretation of the Digital Safety Services
part
Act.
Part of it is that we do want there to be a
thing, I think.
Big diversity.
That's what I'm
things that you want to
currently thinking.
But it's about you associating,
and then about how the communication software is interpreted legally globally.
We're still
an extraction shooter where you might have to have certain reporting features that could this integrity of the competitive component. That's just my thought, and he hinted at that in that Q&A, but he said it was a compliance issue.
But the current build that we're in,
Creator Q&A was smaller and more directed,
like in terms of what goes where and like
similar,
what things that would go with weapon upgrades, and you'd be like, okay, like I kind of understand that. And so there's a lot of theming discussions, a lot of relatability
I appreciate
discussions.
You, Smiley and Canis.
We're still iterating on the look sets of them as well, how they sit in the environment. We're still looking at the looting moment as well. So when you open a container, that it feels really good right now. Kind of feels like this like pop in, and that like some folks feel like that it kind of like the pop in feels like
after this
or the pop in of the loot when you're going through a container. The searching essentially is what it is. It feels a little bit like your internet is slow or something. And so we're really trying to make it feel like it's like you're actually searching through, and that
this is one of the things where it's like I feel like
whether it's a material
people
or
were talking about the
else.
searching.
So
probably just don't have a lot of extraction experience. Probably
we're looking at the organization of the
appreciate
materials,
that, Smiley. Thank you
what
so
they
much.
are, what they're used for, and then understanding when you find a specific one, you're like, oh yes. The other thing, it's probably, I mean, we haven't had a question about it yet, but I feel like we should talk about it. Is
hope you guys have fun.
Bag space and all that kind of good stuff, right, Joe?
Like in terms
bag
of
space,
thinking about, we've definitely
listen, MA. I know no play.
A lot of things,
they should have. Did they name it that?
Like we want you to feel the tension of obviously.
They still called it PlayMA,
right? But we also want you to like think more about what, like right now, for example, I would say our looting is very much based on sort of stack value in a size, where it's like, we have a lot of things that accomplish. It's like how much value do you get stacking something inside of a specific slot as opposed to getting a variety of different types of values out of things, It's something we've been talking a lot about. And we might be changing some icon sizes or things like that in the future, or like basically some of the sizing of different types of things inside of your bag just to make it the puzzle a little bit better. But there's a lot of iterations we're going to do on that front.
That's a fair point.
We are going to make it probably a little bit rarer for you to find bags, but we're going to try to make it easier for you to like reliably get them from the black market and things of that sort. So we're shifting some of those equations around.
And they've talked about that a few times.
Is always the topic of conversation.
Base bag space.
They've talked about that a few times. Reworking
I think
the
we're
black
still
market.
talking about base bag space.
The resources.
Like basically, the thing is, we don't want you to not
everyone
feel like
I played
you want
with,
to
I
get
think,
back,
said that.
right? Like I think it's like it's weird if you always feel like you have enough space and you don't need a bag, But I do think that we're still one, like we still want to make sure that tension feels right, But yeah.
So I got a question from
Love that
Zion
find a base bag.
Is there plans to add guaranteed ways to build craft? I heard lots about build crafting, but not being able to get a loadout I designed without hopefully randomly stumbling upon it sounds bad. I would like to see crafting system, or at least have the option to change cores.
I think that's probably going to come when we get more black market upgrades.
Lower level, but like the baselining of build crafting,
all higher tier bags
that
more rare. That's a good point.
Establish through your black market a little bit easier, like acquire and build in that way. But there's always going to be like a difference when it comes to high rarity things. High rarity things, like for example, there will be builds that involved having a really rare item that may not be something you can always have, but like we want you to get more involved.
I wish they would just say there's going to be more gold items.
Actually, kind of do that kind of thing.
I think,
but yeah, Andrew, I know you.
I think we agree with the statement that was in the question, which is like it feels hard to maintain like a build.
Yeah, that's a good
and
point.
We need to. We're looking through a bunch of ways. Through black market or like.
I think with upgrades from other factions, like if they were the same and as consistent as the factions we got,
maybe it's not the same thing that you want. Because we still want you to kind of go and loot things, but we want to have you have verbs that you're like. I like when I'm playing glitch.
But also,
like,
could
this
be
is
ignored.
like the overall verb set I would like for the glitch, and you having more opportunity to be able to go back to that well versus like, though my access to the well is purely based off of the randomness of the container.
I think that's it. I think it's like if you think of like if the like lower level version of it, the middle version,
that could be cool,
the perfect version of it, right? We want you to have access to like the lower or middle version, depending on how you've done that. But the perfect version of it, I think some pieces will still be, things that if you lose them, you'll have to find them again, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the upgrades feel more like a taste.
Is there any discussion on reworking the resurrection of dead teammates system? Would like to see this addressed before launch, as rezzing dead bodies seems free is bad for the tempo of the game.
We concur. Yep, I'll just jump in and say yes, we concur. Yes, we concur. Whereas about a bunch
I believe the Discord.
A bunch of work is going into it right now. We basically have
just got a question there.
One axis of a solve we have right now is increasing the resurrection time and also having it so that every time you go down, the timer does get increased.
Tech space.
And so if you keep on going down, like you kind of like your ability to come back into, back from the abyss is harder and harder. We're also looking at, we also did a bunch of changes in the alpha around like
this is good.
The timer,
of the runner,
saved progress timer. So when alpha first came out, it saved your progress the entire time, and so you could like get to halfway, take a fight, and then go back and kind of just pay for the half of the res timer. We did have a reaggressive decay on that, so it goes down. And we're looking at other things too, that if that's not enough, we definitely know that resing feels a bit too free. We're also taking a look at the messaging. I know that there's the that little the little stick figure above the bags and stuff that we adorably call the little gentleman above the bags.
People do not like the little gentleman. Shadow.
That actually being a tell, so you can't just like camp the bags the entire time. We liked the texture of being able to know whether or not like a crew was downed and like making combat decisions as a crew about that, so you can kind of like coalesce around the information. But I think we're seeing that there's, once you give too much information, obviously like it just like you can have too much action in terms of what to do and where, like not, you can stay in the area knowing that there might be like a clutch play happening or something. So I would say we agree with the baseline is that resing is too free. And we're not looking for just purely punishments where if you do get fully dead, like you feel like coming back and being alive is like not worth the time. That's definitely something we don't want to do. And so we're trying to make it so that there is a thing for continuously dying, and then resing
gives lifeline utility.
Does feel really clutch when you do it, but it's not a guaranteed thing.
I know we've talked about it, but I think the sort of place we're trying to land ultimately is that if a person gets downed, resing them, like not downed, but like not completely eliminated, but like downed, right? Like knocked down, resing them in combat is hard, but it's doable. And if they get eliminated, getting them out, like resing them in combat is really, really, really like very almost difficult to do, right? You really want to do it once you've cleared the area. Is that the intent?
Yeah, we want it to be that like doing it in a fight is not as, you don't want to take that on as often as you did in the alpha. Like, I think that's something we're seeing is that like you saw folks in the middle of a fight go in the back and like res somebody, and then like now it's like the numbers game of it's like okay, it's 2v3, okay, now it's 3v3, okay, now it's 2v2, now it's 1v2, okay, now it's 3v2.
We've talked about that same thing, Jojo.
Yeah, we're definitely working on that. And so not that we definitely don't want it to like remove it from the game entirely, because we do think that it gives a bit more of that social texture to the crew play, or even like if you're playing whether a duo or a trio or something. But we definitely don't want to make it like the obvious choice where there's
PSMGs.
We want death to matter, and I think they've
hit on a few things. The customization stuff they hit on.
Death does not feel like it matters.
A lot of it pretty granular gameplay balancing type stuff.
I've seen a lot
that
of questions
everyone
in chat
basically
about
agrees
where
on.
Where are the aliens? And there's another question. It's like, where is the 4? Are they coming? You want to speak to any of it?
Just say no. Say no. They're coming.
We have plans for like a lot of alien stuff
coming
in the future, that we don't really
use that to
want to talk about. There is some other stuff that has to do with like the 4. We have a touch of it already that we have in testing, but I can't. But I don't know if we're ready to talk about all those plans yet. I mean, like it's content, but it's not kind of we're ready to show yet.
It's not out, Mohawks.
Yeah, part of like
they just did a closed alpha, but it's not still going on.
Of Marathon right now is the table stakes of the universe, right?
Yeah.
And then we're trying to build, but not like build in like a forever way, but like build aggressively towards the alien friction that I think everyone's kind of like leaning at and kind of like and heading towards and like in their wants.
Exactly.
But we're trying to get there in a way
the
where we get the table stakes and then
they're building
we go
here
from there. Even some of our weapons, I know that there was some folks that were just like, where's the 4 rifle, right? Where's the giant pink 4 rifle from the first Marathon game? And we're setting the baseline, but that doesn't mean that we're not invested there or anything. No. It just means that this is the baseline of where we're going to get to. We're definitely conscious of starting from a place that we can grow and get crazier from here. And if you start at full volume, there's kind of no place to go. You're going to get to the ceiling and you crush up against the ceiling pretty fast. But that doesn't mean we're not invested in those areas. I think we're pretty heavily invested.
Yeah, I mean, like ultimately, we're at the start of a journey that we hope Marathon is taking towards. Telling a much bigger story. But you want to start at a place that makes sense.
Yeah, there was a really great conversation yesterday about
which would be super
something
sick.
In this vein, and the excitement was very high in the room about it. So
yeah.
If you like aliens and mystery, I think we're actively having good conversations.
That's a good point, Jojo. Narrative team is never around. very, very playing their cards close to their chest kind of thing with the narrative, even behind the scenes as well. Very touchy, not willing to engage with those questions.
We have conversations about. There's things we're building. I guess
there
are alpha on my Steam. We're gonna have to wait until the next next one that they announce. About
knowing.
I'm thinking next alpha might be July,
and
beta in August, but they have not announced it yet. Some alien.
What do we do?
All right, time for one more question. Are there any plans to expand the verticality of the early game maps by increasing their depth and complexity? For example, by adding more underground locations that could be unlocked through collective community progress or completing some kind of raid-like mechanics?
That's a weird question, as they've already talked literally about this exactly.
We're probably going to be shifting around how we use some of the existing spaces, to be fair, like in terms of thinking about how we're going to add more complexity in ways that we approach those maps, right, Lars? Like in terms of thinking about it, but like I know we've talked about how as like a live game, we want to continuously sort of like add to these maps and think about them in the future. But Lars, I know you guys have talked about it.
I think that's a good way to think about it. Where you were just talking about the alien stuff and how we start at the baseline. I think the maps, we think about it in the same way.
I think that's the last question.
There were some nooks and crannies in the maps that were in the alpha, and it obviously wasn't all of the content we plan to have when the game comes out. And so, but yeah, we see it as, again, creating like this really satisfying baseline and then looking for room to grow and how we increase that complexity over time. And I would say some of the maps, the newer maps that we're working on right now, take that into account even more so than Perimeter and Marsh. Even though we had a lot of those conversations early on about Perimeter and Marsh as well, and then which saw things like the underground sort of gold locked room that was underneath AI Blank, or the sort of twisty and turny tunnels that are underneath bioresearch.
No, it's not going to be free, Zach. I believe they said that.
I think it's like starting at the baseline and then figuring out the right things to add and thinking about that approach from first principles going forward too.
To be fair, Seabass, they have.
All right, Joe, do you want to close this
hidden
out?
in ARG?
Yeah, once again, I want to appreciate everybody for like sort of not just joining us here, but also whoever participated in the alpha or whoever was part of watching it or just even part of the discourse. We really appreciate it. We're really
not even a picture, not even a screenshot.
Where we evolve this game and sort of how we're continuing to iterate on it and make it better. So thank you all for the feedback. Thank you all for the questions. Thank you all for the sort of support and for sharing your feedback and opinions with us. It's all super valuable, and we've been listening. We're like constantly talking about how to tackle it. We're doing a lot of things already to tackle it. We're sorry we couldn't show anything this week. Unexpected conditions came up.
Kind of didn't even really say that they weren't going to show anything in the beginning.
And hopefully that'll be exciting to see. But yeah, thank you all very much. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Damn. Ay. Huh. Okay. Stream did not improve the mood. Okay, so let me just think here for a second. Trying to think like what I wanted from the stream was primarily, right, let's talk about the art thing, because like that's kind of the most pressing issue from my perspective. What I personally wanted was some ownership over the situation, despite the fact that, like we were kind of talking about in the chat, huge supporter of the game, reaction tells us everything. So one of the things that I wanted, right, I wanted some strong ownership over this issue, and like a few people were talking about in the chat, listen, there's legitimate ways that this happens, and everybody at Bungie is not evil. I do not think Joseph Cross is a bad person, or Joe Ziegler, or the very talented team that is working on the game. But as a leader, I just, and maybe I'm wrong for this, or maybe I don't understand corporate or game design. Maybe that's my kind of maybe this is something that I'm missing, right? This is something that's not in my wheelhouse. But personally, I want to see a leader step up and say, hey, I don't care that this was 4 years ago. I don't care I wasn't the game director then. I don't care that it wasn't me who cut and pasted this thing. But like, this is on me. I want someone to take accountability for that and just state it really directly, despite whatever bullshit corporate legalese jargon might be being fed to you as a scare tactic. Like, I really want that from a leader. I don't feel like I saw that. With that being said, I think that Joseph Cross, when he was addressing the beginning, was very genuine, and I think the things that he said are very indicative of somebody who cares about this art style, has put a lot of work and effort into creating something, and acknowledges that what occurred was wrong, and it obviously it appears like they're going to attempt to make right with what happened. And I don't want to be the guy who's like really nitpicky about how people articulate their apologies or something, because who am I, to say that I would do it any better or something like that, obviously is like silly. But just my personal preference, I really would have loved to see more ownership over that error, and I would have wanted to see it addressed in really direct language. To draw a little bit back to the game, which I obviously care about, the narrative and stuff, when we're going through the Traxxas contracts, how different do they sound than Gaius? We're listening to Gaius talk, and Gaius is very communicative. He's talking like a human. He's very blunt, right? And then we listen to Traxxas talk, and they're hiding behind this corporate jargon. And it's like, oh, we have an asset recollection team. Okay, you mean Hitman? They're hiding behind these things. Some of that really bled in to the moments that would have been much more genuine if it felt like they weren't, doctoring their speech in that way. So that was unfortunate. Gecko, for me personally, I don't know enough about the situation to really expect something official on the art front. Talking about the issues that have been voiced about the alpha. Yeah. Joe Cross Def cares and was deflated. Yeah, absolutely. And this is a hard situation for them to be in. That's what I'm saying. I'm not judging them for this decision, but from a leadership perspective, and to build confidence in me as someone who's been following this game and very tuned into what all these people are doing, and as much as you can be, right, from this outside perspective, I would have liked to see a level of ownership over this situation that I don't feel like was properly addressed. Just talked about the low-hanging fruit and nothing meaningful got said. Okay, that's the second component, is that I wanted some very direct answers on like the main things that we heard. One, heroes. Like, I get that you're not changing the format of the game. I think it's silly to go or to think that it's something that they would do, especially because I think the game's fun to play. I think it's silly to think that they're going to relinquish this whole concept of what they put forth. With that being said, it is such a major piece of feedback that people are so upset about the hero aspects of this game to not address it at all. And the one thing that you're doing post feedback seems short-sighted to me. Maybe as a side note to that, listen, if you're not going to play the game, one, don't call it a PlayMA because you're not playing anything. Two, this really should have been a video because they said a lot of things here that were like indicative of very granular changes that they're making to mechanics and balancing of this game, but they need to format this into a way that's digestible. Because we're going to talk about like some of the bigger questions here, and the answers I'm going to give you are going to be like based off a 600 words that somebody thought up in the moment to explain generally what's occurring. They should have put bullet points. They should have addressed these directly. Make it a video. You're not playing the game. Who cares? Record this and put it out. Made a great point, but can't help if they don't take ownership for legal reasons. I hear what you're saying, and I get that. And like I'm saying, this might be, maybe I have the wrong opinion here, but my perspective is that's something that you have to do as a leader. Sometimes, despite what is going on, you're the commander. You're in charge of the ship. It's like if it's Star Trek, and the captain's up here and something's going on, it's like we can't make that maneuver. That's against naval policy. But they do it because that's the thing that is going to be the right thing to do. And in the long term, people like Joe Ziegler and Joseph Cross, who are these kind of creative, level-headed people who are coming from a long time in design and in game development, that's what I expect. I expect them to be the people who are like, let's just be honest and real about this, and that's going to connect with people. That's what would be the best for the game in the long term. A single company that would have addressed it as fast as Bungie had. That's a fair point as well. But once again, maybe that's just my personal thing. What I think is the right thing to do, put it on the main Twitter account, don't hide it on this dev account, and address it really, really directly. The next thing is, we just talked about the heroes, right? Okay, the solo play. Solo play was brought up briefly and then immediately shifted to a conversation about weapon balancing. I am not one of these people that think solo viability has to be one-to-one with team viability, especially because I had no issue doing the matchmaking and stuff like that, right? I enjoyed that process well, and if it's a game that's 3 people, it's a game that's 3 people. I don't care that well, I guess maybe this is bad because Halo had like a free-for-all mode, right? But if I understand, like if you want to play team deathmatch, you're gonna have teammates. So I'm not one of those people who's like super torqued up over the solos, but being objective, that is a major issue that the game has to address, or at least explain their thought process to people, and they really didn't do that. They talked about how like potentially, I guess, solos could be more viable given that there were adjustments to the actual combat systems, but that's not like coming out and saying like, all right, we are not going to make a solo only mode for this reason. This is our design philosophy. We are going to do it, and this is how we're going to implement it. They're just talking about balancing and how it could be more viable in the system that already is antithetical to a solo mode, really. Marathon team really has their backs against the wall here. They put themselves in a position where no decision will be the right decision. Really unfortunate. And that is a great point. They're in a very hard spot, and I don't envy their situation at all. And especially because a lot of people are passionate about this. I mean, listen, I'm yapping about this stuff on the internet for a few people here on Twitch and over on YouTube. It's like we're a passionate group of people who care about this project because we think that's cool, and it's difficult to appease that kind of group of people. We all have different thoughts and opinions about things, and they're in a difficult spot. But once again, that's kind of where leadership steps in, and they rally the team. They tell them, hey, we have confidence in this project. I'm going to stand in front of everybody and take these shots. And it didn't feel so much like they did that here. Right now, lore-wise, I don't understand why we are 3 runners with different objectives teaming up. Interesting. I do think that like there is some ways that make sense to me, but also we're talking about like kind of this blue collar element of runners, which as was pointed out earlier when Joseph Cross was talking about that, not something that I personally felt as someone who's almost exclusively tapped into the narrative. I'm not a pro FPS gamer. My interest is really stems from that, and I never got that sentiment. And I think even Joseph Cross hit on, it's like they're building that runner experience still, and that wasn't conveyed. And maybe that wasn't a thing that was supposed to be conveyed during the alpha, but to hit on that now, I think is something that would have been relevant. Clearly a pattern of them not tackling issues head on. In the end, I think it hurts them. Worse, answer may not be popular. Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that they addressed it yesterday and that they continue to do the PlayMA, but I think the approach should have been a little bit different. Do better with talking to the community, create videos rather than stream of prepped answers. Yeah, exactly. Or at least an outline. Hey, sometimes I make videos where I'm just yapping, very different from other videos I make, but I have some thoughts or ideas I want to put out and I think might be interesting to engage with. Still, I think it's helpful to like put in the corner, like this is the topic that I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Just to give people a little bit of a format to interact with. They called it PlayMA because they were going to play the game, but couldn't because of controversy. Absolutely. Should have changed that. Shouldn't have just still titled it PlayMA and then never brought the game up on screen. Not a single time. So far, what I got from this was morale has been boosted a few %, but it wasn't really enough to see the needle move. Anybody who's upset about the art stuff isn't going to walk away from this feeling any differently than they did when they saw the announcement from yesterday. But that's what I think personally. People who were soft on the game aren't going to like soften the game from a gameplay perspective and don't give a shit about the art stuff that happened or are even aware of it, aren't going to walk away from this like, okay, my issue with the game was addressed in a way that either explained to me their design decision behind it or they're changing it in a way that's going to make me enjoy it. I think that's a fault. Even if, and like I said, I enjoy the game. I like the systems. Even if they were just going to stand behind it and say, we are keeping the game this way for these reasons. These are what we learned. This is what we learned from the alpha. This, and this. They didn't do that. You know what I mean? Like even that would have been more beneficial. Only Anti-Real can say them. There's a power now and there's some poetic justice. But even then it's like, what is the compensation for that makes it just? I mean, the situation is unjust. They should have said that. If this is actually a rough test, they should have kept the NDAs. It's hard to know what was finished and what wasn't in the alpha. Yeah, well, nothing was finished in the alpha. It was basically a test of the core gameplay mechanics to understand the time to kill, the weapon balancing, loot, these types of things, to get a base understanding of how players outside of the studio, because they've spent so much time doing these small playtest groups and in studio development, how will players actually touch this thing that we have on a very base level. You get what I'm saying? It's like if you're making the game of chess and you have the board and you don't have all the pieces figured out, but let's just throw some pieces on the board, maybe give a few of them ideas about how they move, and let's just see how people interact with it. That's what it felt like to me. Not finished, and the complexity can grow from there, but I don't know. I disagree. It sounds like they are doing concrete things to make it right. Part that stuck with me was him mentioning that they would be scrubbing everything, even if they directly worked with the artist, to make sure nothing else looked doing that. Yeah, I do think that is an important step in this. Yeah, and the fact that they're iterating that. I just wish the language that they use to explain those things, like I said, took more ownership over the issue. And then customization. I think customization was like an unbelievably important factor to so much of the feedback, and I've talked about this a handful of times, but prior to the release of the stuff in April, we as a community via our Discord, and we made a video about it. Myself and Michael put together this forum with a bunch of questions, asking people about what they want from Marathon prior to any of this information coming out. And a huge piece of feedback on that was customization. And obviously after the alpha, that was something that people have been shouting. And they talked about this idea of skins, and Joseph Cross even kind of went a little bit further to, I don't know the exact language that he had used, but to kind of hint or indicate that there's going to be different ways to provide some variability to your character. That was in there as well. But I think just directly say, like, what is it going to be? Is it going to be skins that people can purchase or unlock via the battle pass? Is it going to be because they talk about fashion, right, as kind of like the in-game, they kind of hinted at the in-game Destiny fashion thing a little bit, and it's like, well, okay, so is there going to be equipable pieces that alter the character? I think they should directly say where their head's at there. The negative press is getting to them. Entire hour stream and nobody sounded even a little excited about their own game. And I do feel like maybe a part of it also is very stressful going into this. So I understand the mood. And then I think despite the mood, I'm sure that they are excited about the product that they're working on, the game itself. Like I think they have belief in that, but yeah, obviously going into this a little rough of a time. I think the feeling that the response was not rehearsed made it feel more real. I do agree that could have been more, but still felt good. I agree. I get, but it also, to caveat that, it's like so much of the language that they chose to use did kind of soften the nature of what was done. Like I said, not that it's entirely unrealistic or impossible, and there's not like a viable excuse and a way for them to correct this, but a lot of the language did also feel kind of ran by legal in a way. And so I don't know. Yeah, I want to have like a few more thoughts about it. If you guys are in the Discord, we did update the server, so obviously this conversation will continue over there in a lot of different ways. And we've added some other stuff into Discord. Raising eyebrows, thank you so much. I appreciate you. That is very kind of you. But yeah, I do want to talk. Let me digest a little bit of these thoughts a little bit more. We did do some updates to Discord. I saw Mr. Forkman was in here as well. I don't know. Martin, did you have anything to add about that, perhaps? I don't know. I'm sure. I think I need to digest generally what they said a little bit more and kind of see where it stands. I'm not satisfied, basically, with what was said. I don't think they need to stick too much to that. Nifty. Oh, you're too kind. I appreciate you. Stick too much to that, really. Players are much more used to recognition now than 10 years ago. Fair. Because about Exoborn yet? Not yet. Maybe if I get into that next playtest. Oh, Martin. Okay, Mr. Forkman's here. Okay. Well, just do this.
Ladies and gentlemen, this absolute rad stream of Jake the Right has been interrupted to bring you an important...
I'll be watching, waiting. Until then, I have a favor to ask. Raise your aura, shine, glow.
message. Contract protocol found. Initializing. Done. Important. New resource discovered. Aura. Resource diagnostics partially complete. Aura, an all-right unit of measure. Earn it by completing Discord-based objectives. Participate in events and claim hidden codes. Location noted. All-right Runners Communication Platform. Warning. High aura levels detected in uplink stream. Updating contract protocol. Contract protocol complete. Resuming normal activities. See you Starside. Praise the Fork.
Sorry guys, I don't know what happened. I lost like frames there or something. By the prawns, big forks. But yeah, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the sense that I think they should have been more direct about the issues that they were addressing. The format should have been better, and the language around the art stuff. Despite, I do think Joseph Cross obviously is very genuinely sorry, and the whole team obviously cares very much about the situation that has occurred here. But I think the language that they use and the way they address it maybe would have been better in a slightly different format. They mentioned the 4, I guess. They are going to be in the game for sure. I think, Carlos, honestly, anybody who's been following the game or been looking at the ARG, there's a lot of deep lore tying in the stuff from the original games into this new game. So I think from the narrative perspective, it's just so hidden behind ARG stuff, and you know, it's not obvious, but in a lot of ways that's cool, right? It's cool that it is something you kind of have to dig into, and then in the game itself, it's going to be another layer of stuff that you're going to be able to interact with. But absolutely 100%, if you haven't checked out the ARG stuff, you know, there's a lot of different avenues to do that. But yeah, I think that the narrative stuff is coming, and it's going to come in a big way, and there's going to be a lot of really interesting stuff to. Guy was devastated. You want to get kicked in the balls? No. Although that does remind me of Idiocracy, which I will have to watch again now that I thought about it. So vague. However, they made it seem like they aren't even working on them yet, but they might be coming later. What are you talking? Oh, the 4. I think that there's a lot more behind that. I mean, artists frustrated for everyone involved with this. Yeah, absolutely. That's, I think, absolutely a fair interpretation and feeling for this. 100%. Dylan, yeah, it's a fuck situation all around. They say anything about future streams or when they are revealing anything new? They did not. I think that's another interesting decision as well, to not even get, because they had talked about doing another playtest and the beta as well. Jake, please, what was that? Just one person we were talking about. They talk about they did at the very beginning. I don't. This is probably like roughly.
Sorry, I wrote this. I wanted to make sure I get this message right. It came to our attention that an artist.
Okay, see, it was not. Okay, it was not the audio on my end. It was their audio.
In the early stages.
In a future stream, we can show the game. Yes,
took a number of graphic elements.
They also talked about something next
designer, week without permission or acknowledgement.
This is what they said about that.
Placed them on a decal sheet that was then checked in 2020.
Shook by the scandal.
Included icons and text
elements. I think it would have gone way better without that.
Ended up in our alpha build, and there's absolutely no excuse for this oversight, and we are working on and 100% committed to our review process.
He also talks about how they're going through, and that's what I'm about to say, but going through, they're going to review everything. It's not acceptable, stuff like that. Yeah, it was interesting that Joe Ziegler had said that there was going to be something shown next week, and it's like there's no event or anything. So I don't know if it was an event, Scrungus, but he said there was going to be something shown next week that there was supposed to be. Thoughts on the original creator joining Bungie, if they want to, that is. Are you talking about Greg Kirkpatrick, original writer? Jason Jones is still there. Robert McLeese, who had worked on Marathon 2. is there as well. He's the guy behind The Flood. He's writing for this, had written stuff for the first ARG as well. We actually just got confirmation that he's still working on the project, writing, that is, a few days ago, maybe last week or something. Going to at least announce another playtest. Thought it was going to come right at the end, but nothing. I see, that's another thing that feels like a misstep. It's painful to watch the second time. Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Did ask whether or not they would consider hiring the person, and responded they definitely would want to / work contract with the, if that was a possibility. Yeah, and that's one of those things I think a few people point out. It's like, that's so emotionally it's complicated, right? Because you're this artist, and I mean, think about it. If these designs were implemented at some point earlier on, it's like, man, if you guys want to hire me, then my life could be different in a lot of ways. And how do you compensate someone for the way that it was utilized? I don't know. There's a lot of complications there, so I don't know if that's realistic. But Joseph Cross obviously did the right thing in the sense of saying, like, yeah, obviously this person's great. I respect them enough to work alongside them. That's, you know, obviously like their art, which I think that's the appropriate thing to say. But how realistic that situation is and what that means, kind of in effect, maybe is a little unrealistic. Making Mushroom 4 for sure. Exactly. Robert McLeese, we can only hope, people. The fungi is a big deal. I'm an art director. I really don't think anything short of Joseph Cross stepping down cuts it. Oversight is his failure. I agree in the sense that I think some extreme ownership of the conflict is required. I don't know about stepping down, but it just sounds like they'll be streaming again next week where they can follow up on anything new. I didn't really get that. I didn't really get that they were going to be doing a stream next week, and I think that's something that they would announce at this point, but I don't know. I feel like I'm going crazy. There's no one talking about it. I've heard so many names for the artists here. I forgot their real name. Anti-Real. Yeah, thank you as well. Mad that this assets are way more important than what they actually feel they are. There was, and that's those things, like, I'm not getting too deep into the weeds of the language they use, but there was a little bit of softening, right, of what the situation was. Didn't catch the answer as to when he was asked about if they could hire the artist. Do you have the general answer for that? That they would be open to working with them or contracting them if that's something they were interested in. But what I'm saying is, like, I think from a professional standpoint, that seems kind of unrealistic. Marathon had the same vibe. Seems more in line with the original trilogy. The Marton message. I don't know. Rhea. Scan the code, Father. Raise Aura. Don't you mean anti-real? Oh, maybe I don't. Maybe I miss. I saw somebody had put it up there. Yeah, anti-real is the name of the artist. Developer update vibes. Yeah, I think that given what they actually put on display, the format would have fit better in a short video. Get all these same people in a room. Give them an outline of topics, write the outline on the bottom of the screen, have them speak from the heart, have Joseph Cross say the piece that he's going to say, you know, but deliver it in a different format. It's less to look at than that even. It sounds like there's going to wipe all the assets and start over. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they couldn't even play. I guess it makes sense, right? From like a legal perspective, it's like we can't risk like showing this and you know, putting this out there if anything could be there, especially before we even complete the investigation. But also a bummer that they would still call it a PlayMA. Yeah. OG Marathon Crayola palette. The 4 ship was beautiful though. Might have been a blessing in disguise for Anti-Real. Oh, for sure. Hopefully this just turns into something great for Anti-Real. Absolutely. Agree about different format, but it feels like more authentic doing it live. That's fair. That's fair. And Ace was talking about that too. Maybe it's just that would connect with me more if it was like a little bit more ownership. I think that's the big thing from me. Mandalore, how's it going, Mandalore? Extremely bizarre that so much of the team was following her on Twitter, and they apparently had hundreds of artists working on Marathon, but no one dropped a line about contracting her. It only seems to make sense if they were drawing from her, and who knows what else, for mood boards, and the hundreds of artists are pretty low-paid ones overseas from Bungie, and it's no wonder some assets got in directly. Yeah, that's a fair point. And also, I know if this is the real Mandalore, right, you're kind of involved on the back end of some game development stuff in various ways. So I've been saying like throughout this, like I don't have like a full understanding of this process. And the biggest thing to me was her Aleph dark haulage logistics or whatever, man, getting that pulled over and having this texting game that seems to be a reference to the Aleph 1 team, which is obviously, such a cool thing to include into the build of Marathon that we're seeing, but also it's a reference to a separate mega corporation that could be relevant within the larger context of the narrative they're building, where these megacorps are fighting for this control in Tal Ceti, and to think that this text even was something that was directly cut and paste over, and the narrative team isn't going through the map and reading all the I would think if I was writing the game, I would want like all of the text. I want turn my volume up. There we go, Shadow. We'll see if now I'm screaming at you. I would want like all of the text in the game to be, going by someone's desk and kind of taking a look at it and saying, okay, is this actually something, or writing this? Do we have a background document that includes something about this? Def get compensation, but I don't know if they will want to join Bungie. Yeah, exactly. It's just that's a rough situation to be in. C-suite at Hooded Horse. In fact, Bungie has had this happen several times now, is nothing short of nuts, and shows their process just hasn't been fixed at all. Very good point. Very good point. Crazy, ridiculous, and in such similar ways as well. I mean, you look at the Nerf gun situation. This is art that was just cut, and not that was in-house, but just cut and paste, or the cutscene as well. Almost like cut and paste art popping up again. And it is like, I'm not saying that they're lying about this, obviously, but how convenient is it that it's like, oh, this guy is some guy that used to work here. Oh, it's some outside contractor we didn't have direct oversight over. It's like, you're paying for the guarantees of this person. This person isn't here, so, it's difficult, and it feels like they're sidestepping accountability, even if that is, 100% accurate, which I believe it is. Taken by the notion that was a mistake to this degree, it really isn't. It's clear the art team was playing it too loose, and things got through cracks for a AAA studio. Those things shouldn't happen in the first place, yeah. Which has been the complaint that people have been, saying for a very long time about Bungie at this point. So yeah, and it happens again and again. Honestly, another component of this is like, if this happens multiple times, at what point does the CEO step in? Like, why was people, like, we're talking about, okay, so if like you're running this company and there's these two teams, right? You have a team making Marathon, you have a team making Destiny. It's like, if it happens on the Destiny side, all right, let's let Destiny handle it. Happens on the Destiny side again, all right, I mean, you guys need to make a statement about this. Happens on the Marathon time, it's like side. It's like, at some point, maybe like the larger level people need to step in here and say, okay, we're not doing our job as oversight, and there's things occurring. I mean, I like the idea of this coming from Joseph Cross because he's art director. But just overall, I think that's the bigger point I've been getting at throughout this. I want more accountability and direct language being utilized. Check my last comment. I quite like the hat. Quite like hat. What is this? Oh, you need to work alongside people who wronged you, directly or responsible to stop it from happening. You then are part of that system without necessarily power to change it or help avoid it. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. A complex situation and emotionally difficult for the artist who's now in this weird position. Blaming a temp/gone worker is the easy way out. Doubt we'll know unless more stuff leaks out. Exactly. Jason Jones needs to go Jason Statham on the employees. Even if the Rogue Guard thing is true, it's still an indictment of the art director failing at the primary responsibility of oversight. Yeah, exactly. There's a procedural aspect of this not occurring here. And man, just the whole idea that the same would slip through is, I don't know, crazy to me. Like unreal. Like, I don't even understand it. Making games for, over 30 years, major companies, Sony money, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Really hope Bungie can pull off a miracle with this where everyone's happy. Selfishly, I was really looking forward to jumping into the game. Snowcourt, I hope you're doing well. Yeah, I think the game is good. I enjoyed playing the game. I think the narrative that they're building is so strong, and there's so many avenues for them to approach it and build off it. And it's just like one unfortunate thing after the other. And a lot of it coming from, not that it's all external to Bungie. A lot of internal mistakes to Bungie. A lot of external stuff that they don't have control over. I think like Concord and even here, like I've said this a few times, the guy who was kind of like, I felt like the biggest creator attached to Marathon and had done all these play tests and was, talking positively about it to a largest audience was Dr. Lupo. It's like, what are the odds that this guy would be involved in like, the most insane controversy of his career so close to this occurring? Not that had some crazy negative impact on Marathon, but it's just like everything around Marathon, and then also Bungie stumbling over themselves and making mistakes is unfortunate. And I think there is something special here, and I think Marathon is special. I think the game that they're developing has a lot of potential to be really great in a lot of different ways, but crazy. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn or making more of a conspiracy. With that big layoff they did, is it far-fetched to think that it may have been a cut corner, and now it's like, haha, you got me. I would, but see, another person I brought up earlier, I'm sure some of the layoffs were people who were in like quality assurance or potentially they laid off people that could have prevented this from occurring. They downsized their workforce, and now more workload is passed on to more people, and it makes it easier for things like this to occur. Really like Marathon Universe. I think it's got really interesting lore. Yeah, absolutely. That's why people have been talking about it in the depth that they have been for so long. For sure, Vivid. Bungie, at this point, in my opinion, needs to fix the art scandal by paying and or hiring the individual, maintain crystal clear transparency, continue to develop, delivering a good product for open beta, and then over-delivering final product. Yeah, that is the hope. That's what I'm saying. That's going to be between Anti-Real and Bungie. Like, what is proper compensation for that? And yeah, obviously, and we were showing her website up here. This is their Superstructure is the name for a company. Design Infospace Architecture. You can go here. Also on their Twitter, they have a Ko-fi link right here if you want to donate and help them out. Support them. Absolutely. Played too loose, and they have been doing it for years. May not have been Joe Cross, or he may have been lied to by his team many times, so he cut corners in order to meet unrealistic deadlines set by higher ups. Yeah. Scandal is 6 years old, though. Maybe. I don't know. But then again, it's like 6 years and the asset getting through this many stages. And nobody looked at the Aleph thing and said, oh, is this like this is something we're establishing? This is like narrative stuff that we're building. You get what I'm saying? It's like that was never brought up in kind of like a real sense. You know what I mean? Somebody can turn this whole game around and be one for the history books. I agree, but I do think that there is a good game here, and I think there's good people working on it, and there's something great that can come out of it. But yeah, more and more difficult as thing after thing happens. Two people that worked at Bungie during ODST and D1 is very messy, huge place with lots of teams, some of which just warm chairs. That's unfortunate. Because growing up playing Bungie games and I have such a personal attachment to Halo. Not that I know any of these people, but a lot of people are very attached to Bungie, and that's like prior to any of the Destiny stuff, which is kind of on a whole other level in a lot of ways, right? In terms of people connecting with Bungie, at least. Yeah, people feel passionate about the studio and about the games they make. Need to resolve the matter because they use some decals, but like people claim Bungie robbed the entire art style is crazy. Yeah, exactly. And then, like we were talking about earlier, I'm sure Anti-Real would also indicate that a lot of what they did was iterative work on stuff that was, had been around, and Wipeout and Y2K is, the stuff that Josie was talking about. But the context is very important because you look at like their marketing materials and stuff that they were directly, seemingly aware of. I don't know. It's hard. Creative, I just really want to believe it wasn't blatant and malicious form plagiarism. Yeah. Well, I mean, cutting and pasting, it was at some point. It's just, obviously I hope that not such a large amount of people would be aware. Hopefully no one was aware but the person that did it, but for it to slip through is problematic. Yeah. I wish they'd pay me to sift through all the arts assets and make sure they are perfect for eyes. Yeah. Okay, I'll hit up Pete and I'll let him know, Ludens, that you're ready for that job. Took the art and flipped it upside down. Changed it. But yeah. Poster, they own the asset. More understandable. They for sure knew that they did not own it. 100%. Yeah. Whack things happen multiple times. Exactly. Yeah. Could have been AI that picked up the stolen assets. That would be... I don't believe that that's what occurred, but that would be so horrible. Wasn't expecting that. Beeble. All right. I'm seeing this. Listen, guys, there is something new on the server. We did a huge Discord server update. It's a very fun place with a lot of really great people. So if you're not in the Discord, I recommend checking out. And we do have a new feature inside the Discord that you might be familiar with if you're part of the Marathon Discord. We may or may not have a contract system, and it's you got a contract. Ooh, good stuff. Take a look at Rylo's tweet. I have not yet. We can pull that up. But if you guys are in the Discord, if you want to embrace the folklore and have some great chats with people, we've introduced a series of contracts you can complete to compete to be number one on the Aura board. And this was put together by Undefined and you know, a lot of work on the back end from the whole administrative team and moderators keeping things in check. So very appreciative if anyone wants to look at it. I know I was driving someone crazy by not acknowledging it earlier. Was it Freya? Did Freya leave? Did I drive her completely crazy? I'm sorry, Freya. Can we just scroll and appreciate anti-real art for a while? Yeah, I'll chip in. I'm a Kofi. Dude, a lot of great stuff. Where's her? Oh yeah, right here. Yeah, this stuff is so rad, especially, you know, if you've been following Marathon, been excited about the art. Yeah, seeing it now. Freya, how's it going? Okay. Yes, here. Wait, let me just hold on, grab the bullet points for the contract system real quick. Because I want to make sure. Hold on, wait, maybe I don't have it. So everyone understands. Maybe everyone gets it. Undefined, let me know. Maybe people are having issues. I'm not seeing it. Okay. Yes, we have Martin watching everything we do in the Discord, and there's a contract section that will automatically award runners with Aura for completing tasks and update the Aura board hourly. Community events, admins will even be able to award contracts for participants and winners, so there's a lot of cool stuff we can do with it. And there's vanity rolls for people who complete contracts, which are all tied into our status with Traxxas from the alpha. It's midnight and you throw this on, man. An old lady like me. I'm sorry. But it should be fun, and I love, you know, interacting with everyone on the Discord, so it should give us another way to do some cool stuff on there. And we get a good Beeble shout out. Beeble has been such a long-term member of the Discord. And yeah. So what happened? I left to eat. What's consistent overall? Didn't add much. Didn't address the kind of major feedback issues in a real way from the playtest. Mainly, they talked about balance changes that seemed pretty much in line with what everyone thought they should do, but very, very like kind of minutia of gameplay details. And then on the art aspect, they, you know, kind of said what was obvious in terms of it's a terrible situation. We need to make this right by anti-real, but used kind of soft language that didn't really take ownership from my perspective of the serious, egregious nature of the issue. Kind of reminds me of the Venator Operation Doorstop debacle. I'm not familiar. Discord link not working for anyone else. Tells me it's invalid or expired here. Michael, or Undefined, would you be able to pop that in there? Let me see if I can pop another one in there. Should be the same, right? Discord GG/Jake the Alright. Let me see here. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you. For Aura or Anti-Real's art? Oh, there's also Aura now, Mecha. Which I'll play the video that Michael made because it's so good. Michael and I think maybe Detrea helped on that as well, and Undefined obviously putting this stuff together. So I'll play that again before we leave. Screwed up using artist work without permission, said sorry. Talk about some stuff from Marathon, yeah. But nothing big. Didn't get an announcement for the beta or the next alpha. This is Anti-Real's art. We're just vibing with it right now. Oh yeah, I want to look at Rylo's Rilo's tweet here. I was grumpy. Is this the one? Patiently tweeted a lot, and many people incorrectly got the impression I was defending Bungie or claiming they didn't plagiarize assets. Convo I had with an acquaintance of Anti-Real explains my thoughts a bit better. Is this the message? I'm in no way saying Bungie didn't take direct blatant influence from her work. They absolutely did. As is clear from the copy that says, my point is twofold. One, that Anti-Real's influence was just one of many. Yeah, her art isn't a wholly unique style. She invented out of thin air either. Obviously, if it weren't for the fact that they directly stole her assets, I'd say Anti-Real's influence on the Marathon graphic realism style would be hard to even argue, as their earlier influences and hers are one and the same. Isn't the case, but the point stands. Recency bias and ignorance of design history has led many people think Anti-Real invented this singular style. Yeah, okay, yeah, these are all fair points and probably more articulate than probably his initial like reaction to it. Yeah, this all makes sense. All stuff that, you know, I think regular adult people understand. Like, things are nuanced, and yeah, we're not saying that Joseph Cross had never had an original thought in his life, nor anybody on the Bungie team. Just that obviously there was a mistake made here, and somebody acted in poor faith and you know, did this. Yeah, all good stuff. And obviously, like we were talking about, or I was saying earlier, you go back to the video that Michael and I had done about the art from last year. Now it's filled with comments like, oh, it's Joseph Cross did nothing. It's all Anti-Real. It's like, come on now. Like, a lot of that stuff still stands, right? Concept by define, everything you hear is Detray, and everything you see is me. Excellent. Thank you, Michael, for clarifying. And Rich, so good. You'll play again. Great vocabulary. Articulate yourself really well. You're too kind. You threw me such a loop. Don't get me. My heart got pumping. Bungie themselves. Oh, I'm sorry. See, we've done them multiple times. ASCII stuff is kind of damning. The asking stuff, you know, was pointed out by Michael to me that even is probably more in line with a lot of stuff out there, that dithering effect and stuff. But I agree in totality, everything is like egregious for sure. We saw that the main influence was Designers Republic until all this kicked off. Definitely something we talked about. Designers Republic, Wipeout, Y2K stuff. A lot of cool influences. But obviously a combination of a bunch of stuff. Not coming from a witch hunting place. I just know what being an art director is like. This is such a failure of oversight. You have to try hard at doing it. I don't buy this notion of a rogue artist slipping some assets in. I do agree that it is a larger failure than just one individual for sure. No one's talking about it after like it didn't happen. I thought I was going to say I'm sorry. I tried to play it off really well. This game is cooked. I think there's a lot of unfortunate stuff happening, Yeti. I obviously hope for the best. I think there's a lot of great people working on the game. A lot of good stuff can come out of it, but we'll see. I am kind of surprised that they didn't talk anything kind of about the future, where they're going. That I don't know what to make of that. A mission of her as an inspirational reveal a very bad Bungie naming graphic realism even don't contribute to idea. ASCII-fied art hails from the early days of Wares and Kraktos. Yeah, there's a lot of historical art influence in a lot of stuff, and iterative, and you know, for many ways. Mirror's Edge inspiration, Marathon's artwork for sure. Yeah. 4 months seems so fast now that all that happened. It being negative, but with everyone else on the hate train, might as well just follow with what's happening. I still think that it's a reasonable development time, and obviously this is gonna be a lot of work for them to do, and I would hope that they move things around maybe and get some people from Destiny over to go through whatever process, nuts and bolts it's going to be to verify the art stuff, but I think they have time to introduce content into the systems that they have. We do have an only forks in the Discord. Get your fork lore. Absolutely. If anything good to come out of this situation, I hope more artists come forward when game studios steal their art. For sure. Absolutely. Rage, I hope you have a good one. Thank you so much for hitting out, Rage. I appreciate you. Game will get shut down. I hope not. I hope there's a place for them to go from here. I'm going to digest more about like what I feel about their actual response. Maybe listen to it a few more times, but I like Marathon. I hope there's a space for Marathon. Trying to put some nuance on that. When we see the two sides involved, the relation of power between the two, I don't know, man. Are you talking about between Anti-Real and Bungie? That and Sony probably won't be happy either. Good point. The PlayMA did already happen. I hope you're doing well, Ferrix. But also, there was no play. It was just MA. AMA. It was just AMA. It was just Joe Ziegler and Joseph Cross, and they had Lars Bakken and I forget the other gentleman's name in there as well. Cosmo, I think, was in there to pull questions. Said because when you read the initial post by the artist, it sounds so dejected, like they're talking to a brick wall. I bet it could feel that way, though, because they're coming from a decade of having those kind of interactions and not being heard in any real sense. Still want that new caloric burger. Exactly. That T9 burger, indeed. They talked a little bit about everything. It is David and Goliath. Exactly, Michael. Yeah, for sure. PlayMA is a pun of AMA. I think this is really going to sink Marathon. They got to get. I think that Marathon will come out. I still believe in Marathon, but I agree that this is like a rough situation. Double Fear. Thank you. I just turned the alerts back on. I really appreciate that subscription. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Hopefully this empowers more people to stand up for sure. All right. Guys, I think that's where I'm going to call it for today. I'm probably not going to do a stream tonight. This weekend I'm working on some stuff. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to digest kind of how this was. Probably have a video talking about this on Monday. Maybe some more cohesive kind of thoughts on it. I don't know. I'm still thinking about things. Obviously, next Friday, I'm going to try to get my kind of condensed version of the narrative stuff we got from the alpha out. But I'll see y'all far side. As Beeble says, will the good thoughts on the alpha ever come out? Yes, it will. Oh, that video is done. So yeah, that will also be coming out. So we'll put that out. We'll reach out to Bungie before posting publicly. Not they have to. Just curious. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Mandalore, thank you so much for stopping by. Everybody thank Mandalore for introducing so many people to Marathon. A legend. All right, I'm gonna play the contracts again. So listen up and take note if you're gonna get in our Discord server and earn some contracts and grow the folklore. Okay, I'm gonna play that before I'll raid somebody. I'll find that while I'm doing this. All right, best of luck, guys. I love you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, this absolute rad stream of Jake the Right has been interrupted to bring you an important...
I'll be watching, waiting. Until then, I have a favor to ask. Raise your aura, shine, glow.
Message. Contract protocol found. Initializing. Done. Important. New resource discovered. Aura. Resource diagnostics partially complete. Aura, an all-right unit of measure. Earn it by completing Discord-based objectives. Participate in events and claim hidden codes. Location noted. All-right Runners Communication Platform. Warning. High aura levels detected in uplink stream. Updating contract protocol. Contract protocol complete. Resuming normal activities. See you Starside. Praise the Fork.